let's talk about the state of play. Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, fighting through illness to be here today to talk about the most recent state of play is Mr. Chris Figs. Chris, let the people know how you're doing without throwing up.
I'm doing just dandy. We're making it happen.
Yeah. So with that being said, there might be a need for some editing around here. Chris has already made that obvious to me. We have to take little breaks here and there. And I think that in that effort, we're going to try to focus on one thing today, which is what all of you seem to want anyway, which is we're going to just talk about the state of play. So if you're new to the podcast, first and foremost, welcome. This is an interesting episode for you to hop into, but we're excited to talk about PlayStation's most recent state of play, February 2026. Talk about all the things they showed there. We are a gaming podcast that looks at the industry through the lens of being PlayStation fans primarily, though we play things wherever we see the desire or the want based on what games are there. But this generation, as you all know, it's been getting easier and easier to do that in one place or at least fewer places. So we hope you stick around and enjoy the show and let us know your thoughts on the state of play as well. It seems like overall, I'm curious to see as I keep looking, but right now I think the overall thing has been that this is like a positive state of play. I've seen a lot less backlash on this one. So I'm excited for us to dig in and kind of talk about the things that excited us and maybe didn't excite us as much as other things. And on top of that, while we were unable to record predictions early because I didn't want to record 2 different days and do that, we did have our predictions. And so we are going to, as we're going along, we're going to talk about our predictions and we're going to talk about which ones we got right, which ones we got wrong and all that thing. So Chris, I'm going to go ahead and lob it over to you for a second. What's your gut telling you other than please let me evacuate, my contents? What is your gut telling you on, should we talk about our predictions and then go in wholeheartedly, or should we just talk about our predictions and kind of interleave them into talking about the show?
I think we just, right before we decide to talk about the state of play, I think we just give them right before, I think. Works for me.
Well, let's do what we always do and start this show off in the time-honored tradition of just checking in on what we've been playing. And while I don't think that that's a crazy list for either of us, and we don't even have the document up in front of us, I know that one of the games that we both have on our list is a game that we have finally both platinumed. So we'll talk about Arc Raiders eventually, and I'm sure somebody out there is getting tired of hearing us talk about Arc Raiders. And to be completely honest with you, I am waiting for the day that I get tired of playing Arc Raiders. It's going to come, I know me, and that's not a hit against the game. There's coming a time where I'm just going to be like, I want to do something else. But I'm riding the wave, as you say, you know?
We'll talk about it later, but I think I beat you to that one.
Interesting. So anyway, Chris, what have you been playing that's not Arc Raiders? Because I think you've had a little bit more of a spread than me.
Yes and no. So I do have one game that I'm interested in talking about. But I've dabbled in other stuff. I played a little bit of Splinter Cell 1 HD. It's a good game. I will say I'm past like the tutorial and I'm in the first level. It's Splinter Cell like Hitman. I love Hitman, and you have to kind of figure out the levels. So I'm still trying to figure out where the best route is in that first mission. I think I'm like you in a way. I think you mentioned that you do this where like I want to do the mission the way I want it, which is no kills, nobody saw me, none of that shit. And I feel like we've talked about, you always want a 3-star platforming level before you move on. So we're the same way in that way. It's different games. But yeah, it's really good. It still feels surprisingly modern. And there's stuff that game does that you don't even see now that I'm kind of like, that's really interesting. Okay, yes, there is double jumping in other games. Shut up. But being able to very quickly jump. Okay, I hit this corner of the wall and bounce off this corner to get even higher on that corner. In a game like the way that Splinter Cell is, which is a third-person game, you don't. I feel like you don't see that much, or at least it's not dynamic where you can do it on any surface. Where when it pulls out in a Castlevania game and you see 2 walls, you're double jumping off of them. But in this one, it's okay, you double jump off this wall to get on this wall to grab a pipe and then hang off the pipe and then crawl through a hole and then there's no more pipes, so then you do a split on the ceiling and like you're like kind of shimmying. It's really cool. So it's cool.
Splinter Cell is one of those games where that was back when I feel like Ubisoft was really pushing. Like,
Yeah.
there was a time period where, and don't get me wrong, I'm not even want to take that away from them because to some degree they did that with the Division. That was the goal with the Division, is trying to really push what people expect out of a game. But I feel like at that point, the goal for them had kind of shifted with Watch Dogs and then more so with Division, because Watch Dogs didn't quite hit their goal. I feel like by the time Division released, they did a really good job of it feeling a lot like the initial announcement trailer that they came out with. Whereas I think everybody kind of across the board goes, Watch Dogs wasn't quite what we were promised. But all that to say, they're trying really hard to push tech with like Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. It's just the rest of gaming has kind of caught up in a way where I don't think it's as impressive as it once was. Splinter Cell was like an amazing, like, whoa, this is a watershed moment in gaming back when that came out. And I remember being like, I wish I could play this on console, but at the time I couldn't, because Splinter Cell 1, if I remember correctly, was only on Xbox.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And I didn't have an Xbox at the time. All I had was a PS2 and a GameCube. So I had a friend who had a PC that was talking about it, and a friend who had an Xbox was talking about it. And I thought that was just so neat. And yeah, I feel like maybe I'm older, and so maybe it happens just as often, but I'm so in the industry now that I don't feel it. But there's a part of me that feels like the industry doesn't have that feeling anymore. And I think that's true. I don't even mean that as a bad thing. I just think we've hit a point where so many games come out so often, the industry's grown so much that it's hard for a game to have that feeling anymore. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I also think it's more of a thing of like everything is safe.
Yeah. Everything's a little, whether it's for better and for worse, it's a little more samey as a result of like, we know what works.
I think the thing is like, if we're not counting indies, because I mean, Vampire Survivors is a new genre, and like, Balatro has its own unique concept. But I think if you look at especially bigger games, like, what's the riskiest thing Claire Obscure did? Make a sad story, and that's not an insult on Claire Obscure. It's you like it a lot. But like,
I think if you want to know my real answer, and I'm not saying that that's a big deal, I think the riskiest thing they did was take turn-based gaming that people really love, a subsect of people really love, and infused it with very parry-heavy, almost Sekiro style counter attack system, and that's the most divisive thing about that game, realistically speaking.
Well, and I think that kind of goes to my point, right? Where it's like they took Final Fantasy and Sekiro and put them together. There's nothing new other than the combination, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. My point is that like there is nothing fresh.
Yeah.
Balatro is a fresh game, but like, even to a degree, it's poker and solitaire. Like,
well, and I mean, and I think that you can get to a point where I think there was a little bit of being able to say like it's a bit of being jaded because you've seen so much, but also like literally there are just so many games releasing now. It's hard to be truly original. But I think a lot of it is that in the early days, like Splinter Cell was still pretty early years for full-on 3D gaming. The PS1 kind of made 3D gaming at a market scale, something a lot of people could do. And then the PS2 went even further. So, but if you look, we're talking about like 3D gaming had probably been around. I think Splinter Cell 1 came out in 01 or 02, right? That sounds close to correct, if not correct.
Yeah, like that.
Point being is that full-on real 3D console gaming, for sure console gaming, but even to that degree full-on 3D PC gaming was maybe around for like 8 years. So you were still having to figure out how to do the type of game you wanted, because people had done games that were like Splinter Cell in theory of concept in 2D, but now it was like, how do we use the fact that we have this third dimension to really do something unique with this idea? And I remember, and I think that this is true, it just wasn't as popular in the market. I think the last time that the market really had an opportunity for that, and you saw a little bit of a moment around it with Half-Life Alyx, was VR. I think VR was like we're finally doing something that's so different that you have to relearn how to make a type of game considering what VR's possibilities are. And that is really cool. And I think things like Pavlov and Half-Life Alyx are good examples. But I don't know if they're quite as much. And VR just didn't pop off as well as, I think, 3D console gaming.
I think what innovation is now is quantity of systems. Like I think you're going to play something like Crimson Desert. And let's assume that Crimson Desert isn't a grift, because I don't know that I believe that game is real.
Okay. I'm with you in the sense
it goes to my point. It goes to my point where there's so many things in Crimson Desert that would be like almost a selling point for something else. And those are just parts of it, you know? And I think that's where we're going to be, right? Where if Crimson Desert hits, you know, this is a hot take. I don't necessarily want to have a debate, but like if Crimson Desert hits and all those systems work the way it is, arguably bad thing for the industry. But the bigger point I'm trying to make here is that like I feel like we're never going to see like holy shit I've never done this before, and more of holy shit I've never done all of this in a seamless package.
Well,
you know,
I think we've had this, and this is less. I've long said I think Breath of the Wild is a good game. It just did not hit what I want out of a Zelda game, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable criticism of Breath of the Wild. But a lot of people had that feeling with Breath of the Wild. It wasn't I've never had a grip meter. It wasn't I've. But you get what I'm saying. It wasn't. Oh, I've been able to climb things. It was all these things together. I'm able to free climb. I'm able with a grip meter that comes into play, and I'm able to do a lot of things that other games do. But now I'm able to do them all together, and I think that's what made a lot of people love Breath of the Wild. And I wish there's a part of me that I've tried replaying again. I want to have that feeling of being excited that I can do all these things in there, but I played like 15 hours and it just didn't do it. I kept being like, it may not be what I want out of Zelda, but maybe it'll just be a good game to me. And it never quite hit, but I can see why people are excited. It's exactly what you're talking about with Crimson Desert, but at a slightly smaller scale, because Crimson Desert has so much more of that style shit just around every corner. It's like, what about this aspect? Yeah, we've got that too. And to a smaller degree, I think Fable kind of has that too. It's like, oh, you can be an RPG, but also a village simulator, but also a people simulator, but also I want to own all the housing, so it's a tycoon simulator, but it's also a combat game. But it's it's weird.
I don't know. Either way, the biggest thing I can say is that I was really impressed. I didn't play Splinter Cell, at least not recently, until this time. Like I played like Conviction is the one I have the most experience with. Actually maybe Blacklist on PS3. But I'm just impressed at like what an Xbox game, or let's even go with PS2 game, that's the era, right, was doing. You know, I thought that was really cool. And I don't know what's changed in the HD package, and I don't want to know. But the game I spent more time with, and I think will be the potentially more interesting conversation, is I am further than I've ever been in Detroit Become Human.
I saw you playing that, and I chose not to confront you about it because I thought this could just be him doing what he always does and just diving into a game for 5 minutes just to bounce out and never play it again. I'm happy to hear that you are playing more of it, but I'm assuming the way that you word this, you have tried to play this before and didn't get very
far. I don't know. I don't think it's a spoiler. It's the first. If you're sensitive to a 10-year-old game, spoilers, whatever. I basically am at the point where Marcus becomes Jesus.
Oh yeah, Android Jesus.
Yeah, which it was supposed to be a poignant scene, but I couldn't stop laughing when he grabbed the jacket. I was like, why is this jacket here? Why didn't he put it on? Like, why did all of the stuff that made that part of the scene? I was like, this is outrageous. But yeah, I'm impressed with the game so far. So I'm past that part, and then I did the thing where I'm assuming Connor meets his black mom, and then I'm talking to the cop in the station, SpongeBob or Mr. Krabs.
Yeah, Mr. Krabs. Clancy Brown. So I'm glad that you're liking it a little bit more. I think just to give everybody, including myself, a kind of an update on where you are with that type of game. Did you play and or beat Beyond Two Souls or Heavy Rain?
I've played Heavy Rain. I played a little bit of Indigo Prophecy.
Oh yeah, Indigo Prophecy.
I never played,
or otherwise known as Fahrenheit.
Yes, Fahrenheit. I played a little bit of Beyond Two Souls, but not a ton because I'd heard it was bad, and I didn't care. It
was weird. It's not great. It's okay. It was one of those things where technically at the time it was incredible. What it was actually doing from a story standpoint was really marred by the fact of, we talk about The Last of Us 2. I don't think The Last of Us 2 has nearly as bad of a problem as OG Beyond did, where it's bouncing around the timeline constantly. It's like you start the game and she's this age, and then you do a mission where it's like she's a kid and she's first finding it. And then you move like 12 years into the future, but earlier than the other part, and then you move after the other part, and it's like it feels really weird to find where the natural ending, like you don't feel like you're building towards anything because of how they chose to do it. But since they re-released it on PS4 when they did, you can play it chronologically, and I really do wonder how much that fixes that weird sense of whiplash that the game can kind of give you. Because I think that there's cool micro moments and stories in that, but they don't seem to build towards what I think David Cage thought they were building toward. So to me, I'm glad you're playing Detroit because I really think that Heavy Rain is an incredible game. I think it's. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also at this point, if you play it now, it's of its era, but it's incredible. But I always think to myself that Detroit Become Human is kind of the ultimate blend of what I think Quantic Dream were trying to do with Heavy Rain. And it was cool to kind of see it finally get to show its maximal form. I've always been curious to see what they would do if they tried to extend past this and if it would change up the gameplay considerably. But how are you finding the actual gameplay sections, considering, we talked about how the gameplay sometimes felt like a hindrance to you in something like Dispatch, but there's a lot of self-controlled, like you're moving the character around gameplay in this. Are you finding yourself enjoying that, or do you feel like it's getting in the way of the story?
I think it's a mixture of both. I don't inherently dislike it or like it. I do. I think it shines in like the Connor sections more than like doing dishes, which is twice. I think you do dishes, which is kind of crazy to me. I think you do it as Marcus and you do it as Kara. I don't know. I think in an effort to make you feel like you were making a ton of choices, they made the gameplay sections bigger than they needed to be. Like, why can I go to the drugstore as Kara? Like, it doesn't really help me. But it does lend me the sense of these are the places that are open and I can go here. Mm-hmm. But I think the problem with that is that it doesn't control well, at least in my opinion. And then because, again, it's sticking to this thing of being immersive, nobody runs in this fucking game. You can't run. Yeah. So, like, I was really frustrated. I didn't try very much in the Kara section, after things happen, and you're looking for a place to be. I'm like, I see parking, I see a structure, I go to that structure, I see a car, and it lets me sleep there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, because if I don't, I'm going to leave this area and probably have a little bit of trouble getting through the door, and then I'm going to spend 5 minutes walking to this other POI. That POI is going to have someone who goes, I don't rent rooms to androids, and then I'm going to move on to somewhere else. I didn't go there. That's probably exactly what happens. And, so there were a couple things, like, I don't know, again, it's because of the nature of the game. I don't know if I don't do what I did and I don't explore even that slight bit, because I went to the laundromat and stuff like that. If you get the bit with the garbage man, I don't know if, like, because I've only played it once, well, I don't know if that's on the path I was on or if that was a direct path thing. So I think, like, taking some of the options away would have made it a little bit more enjoyable, because for me, and this is early, so this problem can either get worse or better. I'm not sure which one it's going to be. I think giving me so many things I can study and things I can do ends up hurting the gameplay a little bit because of how slow it is, I get wanting to be immersive and, like, Connor and they're all androids, so why would they run? They don't, all this kind. I get you can make arguments all the way around, but, like, as a player, it's boring. Like, let me run. Like, I want to get to that place. I don't really need to feel every step to understand that Connor is a replaceable android. You get the clue of that, So I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think, like, gameplay wise, whatever, it is what these games are. I just don't necessarily find it particularly interesting outside of Connor. I don't know where stuff with Robot Jesus go or Kara. I don't know where those two places go. So maybe it could be improved. But, like, even with, before Marcus becomes Jesus and rises from the pits, all you're doing is walking place to place, getting hit with racist slurs, and then walking from place to place in a guy's house. Immersive. It tells you about the world. Great. But you're making a movie. Some things I don't need to play.
I think that I get where you're coming from. I really do. And I think it's part of why I've always thought, mind you, I do think Detroit Become Human is the best example. If I was going to say that anybody should try one of these types of games to see if
It's
they'll
Heavy
like
Rain.
it, I think, I don't know, man. I don't know. I actually think maybe OG Until Dawn is actually the best answer to.
Yes, but I was thinking David Cage games.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I just mean like very
or
narrative
quantitative, but
heavy choice simulation games. I think like some of the Telltale games can be good, but I think the Telltale, like, I know that you're saying like this game doesn't feel particularly great to control. And I think it felt better than the predecessor and it did well enough for me to, that I was like, it's fine. And I think it feels better than most of the Telltale games, but that's
yes.
not a high bar. So it's, it is what it is. But all that said, I think that Detroit does the best job of really showing you the difference of, I think it feels good enough. It's got different enough sections of gameplay, and I think it does enough with the actual feeling of decisions. You see this more when you go back and actually do the other things, which Detroit's the only game I've ever actually done that fully for. I got the platinum in Detroit, so I've done everything you can do, and I really love it as a result of that. I think it really extends on how the decisions matter, unlike some games like Infamous or BioShock or some of those games that are kind of infamous for the fact that they have a choice system, but the choice system is really, you're always funneling to one or the other. There's not a lot of options. So I do like how broad and dynamic this game is, but it's not a type of game that I think should be out constantly. And I think the Quarry was super massive, trying to do the same thing as I feel like Detroit and of course Until Dawn are doing, but I just could not get it to click with me. So I don't know if it's I'm burned out on that type of game, but I love Detroit and I love Heavy Rain. So with all of those things being what they are, I'm glad to see that you're playing it, and I do hope you stick with it because I think that while it's heavy-handed sometimes, I think that that's a fair criticism of what the story is. I still think that there's really great character moments and ultimately really great long-form story for most of these characters involved in this.
I don't think David Cage has ever heard of the word subtle. And I think that's like part of the problem, where smacks, by the way. I don't know. I think that's part of it where it's like, again, like in the first minute, I guess probably not the first minute of Robot Jesus' story is him getting beaten down. Like, it's like, I get it. I get what you're doing. Fucking, there's a better example than that. The opening of the cutscene is him getting out of the android compartment on the back of the bus. Like, it's not subtle, And I think that's part of the problem. I'm sure that gets worse.
It's a mixed bag, but like you said, it is a thing where it's like, and I don't hate this. I mean, there's definitely ways to make this work, but it's like, okay, you choose to have the android whose story is about liberating android people be an android of color. But the two white androids are having completely different storylines. And the story is clearly doing something with that. It's just, could it have done it with a little bit more, what's the word? Subtlety, I guess, is really a solid word, but there is a better word I just can't think of right now. But go ahead.
Tact might be the word.
Tact. That's a good word.
I liked.
All that said, I think it's cool because I think it's cool in the sense of not because it's inherently incredible. It's just so few games do what it does that the novelty of it is so neat that you're like, it doesn't even have to be perfect because it's unique.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think like that is definitely a good point. He would not be a light-skinned guy in 2026. I can tell you that much. But I don't know. I do kind of like that the stories intertwine in ways and like they extend on stuff. Like, I don't know how much you read like the police files when you're going through with, again, this is all, we're talking first like half an hour of this game. If you play it quick, just to be clear, you're like, I'm not really talking crazy. But I liked that, like when everything happens with Kara, you see a report about her, but it never mentions the other person with her. Mm-hmm. And that to me said a lot that I'm fairly positive that Kara looks like that guy's wife. I don't know that, but that seems to be what is going on there. So that was like a character moment for all of those characters that like you don't get, where like, he has abusive, man things where like it's like I beat the shit out of you and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, why don't you love me, and he does that, and then you get that. I got that bit of context and I was like, oh, I know why all this is going on. You made a robot of your wife who hates you. Like yeah, I like Detroit. I like that it moves so far, that it moves pretty quickly, because it's allowed me to like get annoyed at Arc Raiders, do a chapter, and then be like, yeah, but it's Night Raid still in Montes now, so I'm gonna go play Arc Raiders again. Like
yeah,
fair enough. Stuff like that. But I definitely think I'll see it through. It's not a hard platinum, so I'll probably get that.
It's not. It's a somewhat time consuming platinum. It's about it.
Yeah. This is the longest this cat has ever sat with me. In how old are you? 7 years.
That's a cute cat, man. I'm very upset with my cats right now. So
Oh no.
Yeah, dude. I'm kind of upset with all my animals lately. I've got 5 in this house. It's too damn many. That's the real issue.
I would never say this to their face, but I would never get a dog in my life. Having them, dealing with 2 sets of them, I'm like, I'm good on dogs of my own, but like cats, I'll get a cat. You want to snuggle for like 20 minutes and then fuck off for 3 days? Cool, perfect. You're a perfect animal.
Oh, so all right. Do you have anything else you've been playing?
I don't think so. I think that's it. It's Arc Raiders and that.
Well, before we start talking about
thing. It's not. Sorry, it's not. I just want to say, old PC games are really fucking annoying to run nowadays, and I think I'm interested to see your take on this. We don't have to have a huge conversation, but I think my experience, because I've been trying. So when I was a kid, I always played this game, this Jurassic Park game, and I never knew the name of it. And I found out the name yesterday, and I've been searching for it for a long time, like watching shitty compilations of like 12-year-olds playing bad Jurassic Park games. So I found it, and it's Chaos Island, the Lost World, and basically you go around. It's a very janky, like mission-based farming game where like you have to raise animals and you go hunt and you collect samples.
Boy, is this an old PC game. Oh, like visually. So oh, dude, this is an isometric. Oh.
But you know what's crazy about it is Jeff Goldblum voices Ian Malcolm, and then in the credits, he recorded a video thanking you for playing.
What a world we live in.
But yeah, I've had so much trouble running that game, and it kind of makes me think that the whole archiving games thing that people talk about just is not real. Because if you're not remotely tech savvy, you can't get this game to run. And the first zip file I found with it didn't work because the game is set to want a disk. So if you don't find the right ISO, I did eventually find an ISO that made it look like the disk was in there.
Yes. Yeah. It's mounted.
But a lot of them I found didn't do that. So you would get through this whole fucking terrible install that doesn't work, and you finally get through it, and then it goes, please insert a disk. And I'm like, a disc? Didn't this come in a cereal box? Like, I don't know how to do that. Yeah, eventually I found it. But then here's the thing with that. If you alt-tab out of the game, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So, dude, PC compatibility is awful. And it's funny because a lot of the reason that Windows is so bad is because they constantly talk about the fact that they are trying to keep backwards compatibility with older programs. But it's so bad. I'll tell you something that's really hard to describe. There's a thing that you can do that you can run a virtual, it's not console, I actually can't think of the word right now, but basically you can run a virtual instance of a different operating system on your computer so that virtual Windows XP or Windows 95 or whatever it was can be playing this game in its own window so that whenever you alt out of it, it's still running. The problem with it right now is that you're telling a game that existed at a time when you couldn't multitask that way on PC to hold the fuck up while you go do something else, and it just freaks out and it doesn't know what to do. So and that's one of the better ways to trick it anyway. And then, like you said, being tech savvy, where you've got to know that typically your best way to do it is download an ISO and then download this thing that lets you mount ISOs to a virtual disk so that your computer thinks a disk is installed when it's not really. It's complicated, and I think it's messy, and I agree. I still think it's important to make these games playable because you should be able to go through and enjoy this thing from your childhood again as easily as possible. But this is also one of those examples of this is probably licensing nightmares. Like it'd be almost impossible for this to exist on Steam now because you'd have to pay for a bunch of licenses that are not worth trying to, if you can even get them.
Jeff Goldblum is much more popular now. Like,
yeah, so let that be what it is. It's interesting to see, but that's cool. I hope you get to play more of it. But
cool,
you might,
cool to play, but terrible game.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, like some games from that same period, like Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2, are just legitimately goated games. So to that end, it is what it is. But like you said, it's at least cool to kind of have that moment of like, oh, I remember this shit when I was a kid. Part of me wants to play like the late 90s, early 2000s PC version of Pitfall, because I had that on a PC that somebody gave us, and I thought I had found the next god. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Did you, speaking of PC shitty games like that, you played Ski Free?
Oh, dude, Ski Free in my elementary school's PC, like we had computer lab.
Yeah,
we played the shit out of Ski Free in computer lab.
Dude, I have a Okay, I'm done talking about my games. I'll let you talk. I have to tell a story. So I went to my printer's not working at work, right? So I had to print out draft lists. So I go to the library. Dude, I shit you not. All of the computers except the one I was using was a bunch of like middle schoolers playing Roblox.
Oh,
I was looking around and there was a part of me that was like, I hate this because you're playing Roblox. Then there was like a bigger part of me that was like, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, to me, that reminds me of, dude, I remember being in like early days when we still had like computer lab turned into East Lab. But I remember being in like, we had keyboarding class. It was like teaching you how to type when I was in what we called middle school, 5th and 6th grade. And I remember doing everything we could to get around the school's thing. Like, oh, we're going to go to this site that lets you type in something else. And then you can just play things on there. It's like, dude, I'm playing RuneScape at school. Look, this is fucking sick. and finding ways to play Flash games. And dude, I remember my first like 9th, 10th, and 11th grade when we were in East Lab. Dude, we were playing every PC game you could play. We were playing Motherload. We were playing Stick Arena, which was this online multiplayer one. So we would all in the classroom just be sitting. There was these like 4 quad setups of computers. And so we'd all sit across from each other, log into the game, load up Stick Arena, and then just fight each other in a little match. Oh, what a good time, dude. And then that was back when we were still doing actual work because we had Adobe Flash on there. So we were doing Flash animations of stick figure things and learning how to do that. And it's just good times. I made a Pablo Francisco, this comedian, has got this thing where he's talking about like, it's a joke about movie trailers and it's about Little Tortilla Boy. And I remember that I animated something to it. I wish I had the file. It's on a school computer, probably wiped at some point now. But it was just, it was fun being like impressing your friends with your animations. Like we're over there like, you just wait to see what I'm cooking up. You know?
My school had Halo 2 in one of the files, like hidden deep, and you could play it on every computer in the school. So it would just be days of just, you want to play some Halo 2 in computer lab today? Fuck yeah, I do.
That's wild. Dude, I was telling my daughter earlier, I was like, back then, teachers were generally older and they didn't understand tech, so you could get away with that stuff. I told her that in 7th grade or 8th grade, I had my PSP in this like really fancy hard case that one of my friends had given to me. And I was playing it in class and I got caught, but she didn't see what I was doing. She just saw I was doing something. I got caught. So I flicked the little power button on the side to put it in sleep mode. And she came over and she's like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's my calculator. And she was like, oh, that's really fancy. She like picked it up and looked at it. She was like, that's cool. That's nice. Okay. And then she just walked away. I turned it back on, started playing it again. And I could not, but Miss Huey was like, she was like 61. She didn't know what the fuck a PSP was.
She was,
and honestly, think about that. She might have known what a Game Boy was, and if you looked at a Game Boy and a PSP, there's no way that you would think those were the same thing.
Dude, the last technology that affected that woman's life was having to stop being racist in public. Like, she doesn't know shit about.
She was a black lady, so that
never mind.
The technology was not being racist.
Dealing with being racist in public by force.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what a world, man. I'll tell you, being young, I wonder if kids have as fond of memories going on in their school. I sure hope so.
The worst possible response you could have said to that joke. Damn, that's funny. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Anyway, all right. So what I've been playing before we talk about Arc Raiders for a bit, I've been continuing on Final Fantasy X, grinding out some stuff to get builds that I want to get for ultimately for late game content. For anybody who is in the know, I'm in Xanarkand, right outside the dome. Take with that what you will. I'm trying to grind to get some more level 3 spheres for the sphere grid so that I can continue my characters on to builds that I want to do. I'm starting to hit that block point with a lot of my characters. So, Chris, as I was kind of telling you, I know you didn't get to deal with it a lot on Final Fantasy, but I thought Final Fantasy X was such a cool idea on how to change the way leveling works in a game. So you gain AP from every fight, and AP eventually accumulates into a point that you can use, like a 1. And you can get multiple. You can get to like 10, 11, as many as you hold on to. But the idea is that point acts as a movement point inside the sphere grid. So you open up the sphere grid per character, and they each start at a certain spot in the sphere grid. And you use these points to move along. And as you move along, you have to use other spheres that you have, like power spheres and magic spheres and mana spheres and speed spheres and ability spheres. And these are how you unlock like stat improvements, new abilities, all those different things as you kind of go along. And then there's empty nodes that you can fill with like MP sphere that you can place in there to raise your MP and create something that you can do out of that without having to land on one. And then eventually you get to a point where you can move characters into other characters' sphere grids, and you can change a character completely from what they were originally intended to be. So you could take someone like Riku, who's meant to be like fragile and like thiefy, and you can eventually move them to being like your most powerful like sorcerer, or you can move her to being like an insane brawler who can just do insane like combat damage, even though that's not really what she's made for. And that's such a cool way to kind of work out what is essentially a skill tree in a way, but like you choose how you level, and that's so cool. I love it. So I'm having a good time revisiting that system and really going further than I ever did as a kid. So that's been fun. I'm having a good time with that, but I also really started paying attention to what I have to do to platinum this game. And I think I told you, even though I could beat the game right now, I could. After I beat the game, I have probably 50 hours of stuff I've got to do. Maybe if I'm really lucky, 30. But it's a lot because my runtime's already like 50 hours right now.
Jeez.
So, but I am absolutely loving it. Much like you're talking about with Splinter Cell, there's things where I'm looking at this, I'm like, this game has such cool ideas that you just don't see very often. And sometimes, we talk about it being cool when games do something new, but it's also like, I would love to see a game come back and be like, hey, we're going to do a sphere grid. We're just going to fucking rip it off. We're just going to do it again in our own way. And it's like, why not? Let's just see what we can do with it. The other thing I started, which has been an interesting thing, is I bought Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, I think is it's called. And me and my wife started that on Wednesday after date night, and it's good times. It is a evolution by far from what I was playing on Vita, and even the ones I tried on PS4, like the Lego Movie game, early PS4 renditions of it. I like it, but we're playing split screen co-op. I do wish that it would let you pull the camera out, but we're having fun shenanigans, just running around doing whatever the fuck we want. And still, the Lego games just have such charm. So playing this and seeing how they're doing this, I'm so much more excited. And I was already excited. I'm so much more excited for the Batman Lego game that they're coming out with. It's going to be so good.
Dude, unironically, a
little ironically.
Contender. Unironically, I think that's a game of the year contender. If it comes out and is as good as it looks.
Yeah, it looks incredible.
Could you imagine the Game Awards and they're like, we've got Judas and God of War and Grand Theft Auto 6 and Lego Batman, and then Lego Batman wins over those. Do you imagine the meltdown?
Dude, people would be like, Rockstar was robbed.
Oh man, maybe someone's sabotaging their servers too, like Build a Rocket Boy.
We'll see what ends up coming of it. But yeah, I've had a good time with both of those, and it's cool kind of getting away from Arc Raiders a little bit more this week, which I have been doing. I played a lot more Final Fantasy this week, even though I've just been grinding most of it. I did get a little bit done in the game to get where I was, and then playing some of that. Yeah, I've had a good time. I am excited still to play, partially because my brother is getting more and more into it, as I was telling you, and it's cool seeing this game. So we go ahead and start hopping into talking about Arc Raiders. So we both got the platinum. and we were working slowly and ever so steadily toward it. And my brother is normally he doesn't care about achievements or trophies or any of that. But as he started to really get into this game and he's starting to get trophies, this game still has, for a lot of people to see, a lot of the trophies have a low percentage. Just because for whatever reason, I guess even though the game sold 14 million, who knows how many of that's on PlayStation? He's playing on Xbox technically, so it's probably even less on Xbox for being real. But point being, he's like, he got a trophy for like shooting something 250 meters away or whatever the hell the trophy is. And he was like, dude, I got this. And only a quarter of players got this. Makes me feel good. I'm like, oh, he's falling into the trophy. Like he's going to become an achievement whore. And then he's like going through and he kills a queen by popping like 3 Pharaoh shots into the thing. And then he's like, I got this trophy for popping the queen. I was like, no fucking way. Chris and I had to slave over getting that trophy. And I got it before Chris, but my brother got it before I did. First try. First queen he dealt with.
First queen. Oh,
and he didn't even know the trophy. He wasn't even worried about the achievement. And he was just like, I got this cool achievement. So it'll be interesting to see. But Chris, he wants to join us because, Chris and I we Sherpa'd a few people. We Sherpa'd RMG 0731, if I remember.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we had him play with us, which was fun. And he was so down to just let Chris be an absolute maniac. So
it was such a good time.
That was good. We had a guy talking about eating Chris's ass, and I'm half sure that he actually just misspoke and was trying to say beat your ass, but he just doubled down on following through on what he accidentally said. I'm like 90% sure that's what happened.
Yeah. Yep.
Because at first it was like, we want all the smoke, and he's popping shots from up. He's like, come out, I'm gonna beat your ass. But he said, come out, I'm gonna eat your ass. And then you could tell the whole tone of the conversation shift after we were like, eat our ass. And then it fell apart. So all of that being said, whenever you ended up inviting me, I was kind of doing the same with my brother, right? I'm Sherpaing him, kind of showing, he's been playing the game a lot by himself, but I'm showing him new things. He was talking about how friendly raiders have been, but he was talking about getting ratted a few times from people who are like, oh, I'm cool, man. And then they'll turn the corner. And then as you turn the corner, they'll blast you in the face. And he's like, that's it. And I was like, oh, you're using rat in the correct term. Because like some people just use rat for anybody who kills you. And I'm like, that is not a rat. Like, don't get me wrong. I know that it sucks to die when that's not the way you want to play the game. Fine, whatever, but just call it what it is. Somebody PvP'd you didn't like being PvP'd. They weren't a rat as a result of that. Like, even the dude who I told you, like, right, we're doing trials progress, or I'm doing them solo. I'm in a map, I'm in damn battlegrounds, hydroponics, and I'm using the little triangle ceiling things that are missing to pop a Rocketeer slowly but surely while I have some safety. And while I'm doing that, I'm like 3 minutes into doing it, maybe 5 minutes, because I'm slowly being careful and there's a bastion around. So I'm trying to make sure I don't end up aligning myself where he can shoot me through a door. And as I'm shooting, I get shot and I go, okay, on the off chance that was something, I move away and I hit prox chat. And I'm like, I'm friendly, but if you want to fight, let's go. And he comes around the corner as I'm saying that, starts popping me, misses all of his shots. And then I go, I told you. And I flipped over to my renegade, popped him in the head once, popped his shield. He tried moving. I popped him in the head again. He went down. He hops in prox chat and starts talking shit. He's like, I'm trying to figure out how none of them shots hit you. I was like, none of them shots hit me because your aim fucking sucks. And he was like, nah, man, my shots were on point. And then I was like, see, this is what you get for being a little, I was like, I'm over here being friendly, but you just wanted to do it. But it's all right. You got the smoke. And he was like, all right, enjoy the free kit, trying to get his last little stab in.
Yeah.
He didn't have a free kit.
Dude, that was like last night me and Sean were playing and we knocked a team and the guy's talking shit in prox chat. And like, you've played with me enough, so you know if someone's gonna talk shit, I'm hopping right into prox chat and I'm talking shit right back. And he hops in, he goes, oh, enjoy the free kit, like, oh, we had pharaohs, we almost died. And I was like, I literally went to prox chat and I just stood over his body. I was like, I don't even want your stuff. I did this for fun. And then I just left. And I let him live. So
that's good. But to that point, that night that I was showing my brother, because he was like, I'm tired of being friendly. I was like, don't be friendly. Just commit. If you're going to shoot people, commit. We had to have that conversation because he was like, well, I was shooting a dude who was fighting a Rocketeer, But then I felt bad halfway through it. But then he came back a few minutes later and popped me. And I was like, of course he popped you. You fucking shot at him. Why would he not seek you out? And I was like, look, if you're going to be a dick, be a dick. You have to commit to what you're doing. Shoot Raiders. It's not even, I actually said, you're not even being a dick. You're playing the game. Mm-hmm. I said, the game is intended for you to have the option to do that. But if you choose that option, don't back out without at least talking to the person first and foremost. If you think that you're just going to shoot them, not say a fucking word, and then run away and they're going to think you're cool, no. That's definitely not happening. You have a pretty low chance, even if you hit proxy chat and go, hey, I was going to kill you, bro, but I decided not to. I wouldn't trust your ass if you're around me. I'm still going to kill you. In a heartbeat. But so I pulled him into a match, and I was telling you that it was a Stella Monis run. We were doing duos, and a team runs up on my brother, and he was like, I'm shooting on sight. But he's used to fighting Ark, so he's not thinking about play interactions. So he quickly starts getting downed, and I have to slide down, get down to one, pop him, who's on one side of the little notch-out buildings and assembly. Or I think that's assembly, whatever the rocket bays are, where the big ones are. And then I have to run to him. He's jumped down to that middle piece, and a dude's chasing him, trying to get him. The dude ran out of bullets for his thing, so he flipped over to his hammer, and he's trying to hit my brother, who's about to die. He's got like 1 HP left, and I pop him in the head twice, and Trace's like, you took out the whole team by yourself, bro. It's fucking crazy. But he finally started getting into it. Then Chris joined, and we really got going. And he has not stopped talking about that all week. He has hit me up almost every day, being like, dude, do you want to hop on Ark Raiders? I really want to get in there and let's see. And he's like, I'm still being nice to some players, but I'm itching to get back in there and really just run a team. And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, well, I got to hop on and do some trial stuff this weekend because we're so close. So we're going to do that. But speaking of trials, Chris and I are in one before we have 2 levels before we start competing for the absolute top tier trials. And currently, I think both of us are in the running to actual double promote to get there. Is that correct?
I'm not.
I need to look and see if I am. As of yesterday at lunch, I am.
Yeah, I went down to 19, and it doesn't make sense. I have so many points. I have more points than I've ever had, and I'm like, I don't see a path to getting more. And I'm falling down the leaderboard, so I'm like, oh my god.
Fair enough. Yeah, I may hop on tonight and try and do a electromagnetic just because of where they fall. I didn't intend that on actually playing tonight. But that's okay. I want to try and get more Husk because I do feel like there's a real avenue for that one to easily get back up. And I really can do more Rocketeers and more Leapers, but I think the Husk is the easiest one I have to push myself further up.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, Chris, I think that's enough Ark Raiders. I'm real quick before we move off of it. Actually, you said that you've hit the point where you just want to play other things. Now, is that what you kind of hinted at a little bit more when you were talking about Detroit, where you can get annoyed and bounce off and do something else and then go back to it, or have you hit a real point where you find yourself currently not really interested in playing the game anymore?
I don't know. I mean, I know Jehudi had asked a question in the Discord. I don't know if you wanted to. I think it fits with that conversation. I don't know if
now's the time to do it if there ever was. Yeah. So let me go over and grab it. Did he put it in announcements? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday.
I got it. All right. So Jehudi says, Chris mentioned how Marathon will attract the true extraction players. Please expand on that and how other games like Tarkov or otherwise have not attracted those massive numbers, and whether Bungie will be okay if their game does decent numbers or not. Which I like that little secondary question is kind of interesting because that's been a topic amongst the industry with High Guard as to can it survive without a massive player base. So that's definitely. So yeah, Chris, We've internally done a lot of talking amongst ourselves while playing Ark or while discussing playing Ark about your feelings for Marathon, what you're going. But so is your feeling right now about Ark bolstered by what you think you're feeling about how Marathon's going to be for you? It's like they're kind of coupled together.
Yes and no. So in terms of the question, I think it depends on what you mean by big numbers, because I was just looking up Tarkov player stats, and it's like an average of 30 to 50,000 concurrents. That's not a small game. That's
good. Yeah, that's really good.
It's not Ark's.
And Tarkov's been around for a long time, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Tarkov was popular when you had to download it off like the fucking dark web. Like, it's been, people are going for that. So I don't know. Like part of what is frustrating to me about Arc Raiders and why I'm excited for Marathon, which let's be clear, check the receipts. I've always been more excited for Marathon.
Yeah, I don't think that that's wrong
not
to
even
say.
talking to you, but like I feel like there's a sense of like, and this is more on Twitter and just in general, right, where people are like, oh, now people are into Marathon. I'm like, no. I've been here since like the first beta. So like I've played all the betas, even the ones I can't talk about. Like I don't know if the NDA still exists, but I'm just not. I don't. The game's out in like 2 weeks. I don't care.
Surely it's lapsed by now. Bungie legal team, actually like a Sony legal team contacts us after this episode goes live.
I'm so sorry. We'll take it down. And also, can I get a free copy of Marathon, please?
Now that I have
you, yeah, it's a good time to chat. But yeah, no, I think the thing with Marathon is, to me, I don't know how to say it eloquently, but like, I don't think most players who are playing Arc Raiders actually like extraction shooters. And I'm excited to play an extraction shooter.
So I actually want to dig a little deeper. First of all, I am not saying you're wrong. I think that that's important for me to go ahead and put in place. But I am trying to fully understand, because I think I get the heart of what you mean. And I think also what you're saying is kind of naturally true, because Arc Raiders is not only an extraction shooter. And I guess what I'm trying to get at with that is, while I get what you're saying, I think to some degree, Arc... And this might double down to what you were talking about earlier too, where as games have more and more features, what they're actually aiming to be becomes a little more clouded. And to that end, I think Arc is an extraction shooter, but it wanted to also be something else enough to let off of some of its extraction shooter things. And as a result of that, it has drawn people who don't really care for the more traditional extraction shooter like a Tarkov to come and play this game, because it's kind of like how people don't like RPGs, but then they'll play a game that is an RPG, but it changes enough things. Skyrim's actually a great example of that, right? Skyrim's an RPG light.
It's an ARPG, I think, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but point being is, I think in many ways that's the way I view Arc. I think Arc is an extraction shooter light. It is there and you can see some parts of it. And I think naturally speaking, Arc is actually going to be a gateway for some people to play true, full-fledged, they consider themselves tried and true hardcore extraction shooters like maybe Marathon is, or like a Tarkov. I think it'll act as a gateway for that. But also to your point, I think that there are going to be people who play Arc who think they're going to they go, oh, I like this game, ergo I will like Marathon, and they're not, because they are inherently different in how they push players onto each other from a conflict standpoint.
Well, look, I think my thing with Arc is that the biggest thing with Arc is that if they'd never put in aggressive based matchmaking, it would be a full-fledged extraction shooter. And that's what I don't like about Arc.
But that's my point.
Yeah, but I'm agreeing with you. But that's my thing. Yeah. Is like they made an extraction shooter and then neutered it because it got popular. And I say this with all due respect, and I feel like you'll understand what I mean. But like, it got popular with people who should never have been playing it, and that's the thing.
Like, okay. I was thinking that you were talking
it didn't launch with aggressive based matchmaking, if I'm not mistaken. So
I don't know.
I'm fairly positive they said that they added it, but they made an extraction shooter and then it popped off so much that like that's the thing with games, right? It hits with a target audience, and then because it's so big, now people who would never have engaged with anything in this genre are like, yeah, I'm going to check that out. And then you have someone who watches Burnt Peanut and is like, and he's the most popular streamer on the planet right now, other than fucking Kai Cenat, right? So you're attracting so many people who would not be... I would be willing to bet 70% of Arc's player base doesn't know Escape from Tarkov is. And that's not a bad thing.
Agreed. I think that's accurate.
But
yeah.
You're playing a game with the DNA of Escape from Tarkov and expecting it to be like a casual LARPing game. I don't understand. I don't even know what they're playing. Right. So that's where my frustration is. And it's frustrating to me. And again, it's probably, I don't know. We'll see how Marathon does, but it's probably better for Embark in like the main, right? Like just them looking at that section. It's probably better for them that it's casual.
Well, I think it's better because, I think it's better for them specifically because they're not beholden to anybody else at this particular moment. And I think being casual, for better and worse, this is also like, I brought up Skyrim not long ago, right? Skyrim is one of the biggest RPGs for a reason, and it's because of how accessible it is. Now you can be big without being accessible. That's important to note too. I think I think it'd be foolish. I don't actually know the numbers, but I think it'd be foolish to say like that. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, a pretty hardcore RPG in the realm of what an RPG can be. That game's big, right? As far as I know, I think they announced that it sold 5 million, which is great for a game of that type, right? It's very unlikely, but not impossible, that it will overcome. I think Skyrim sits at around like 15 million units, which is pretty good, by the way. I mean, that's, but point being is,
solid.
I don't know that I see it hitting that, but it's still successful in its own right. But the point being is, for Arc being, I think any company would be glad to have this, but I think it's actually a little more important that it's doing what it's doing for Embark, because this is great for self-sustaining. You don't have to.
Quick, this is a Nexon game. So
is it actually?
Yeah.
I've never seen the logo come up anywhere, so I didn't know if it was more like.
Now I'm going to check, but I'm almost 100% sure Embark is owned by Nexon.
To confirm the other thing, or rather, Embark is owned by Nexon.
Yeah.
Okay. To confirm what you did say, roughly 2 months after release, aggression-based matchmaking was added. So you are correct.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it used skill-based matchmaking.
Yeah. They are owned by Nexon. So so I think, look, what's frustrating to me about Arc Raiders is that there's no real tension in the game. I don't feel it when I can go into a solo match.
Inherent, where like it's there every single game.
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, I agree with that. Oh yeah, like I agree with it in player tension, if that's what you mean. Because there's tension, like we talk about solo runs where Arc get you because you start getting careless because of some reason. Like usually with me, it's trying to get to extract whenever I'm too far.
Well, I think that's the point, right? If you, other than Rocketeers and Bastions and Leapers, right? Like, and those are not what even we're talking about, because you wouldn't say Arc, you would have said a Rocketeer. And so you're talking about Pops, you're talking about Hornets, you're talking about Wasps, and you're talking about Fireballs, right? The basic ones. You only die to those out of being fucked by the game, right? And that happens, right? Like I got hit by a pop, and then all of a sudden there's another one on me that I never saw, and it was exploding, and I was dead, right? That happened. But outside of that, which is not all the time, if you die to Arc, you were not paying attention. That is 99.999999999% of it. But that's the same thing. Even if you're rushing, you're not paying attention because you're
exactly.
It boils down to you're not aware of your surroundings fighting the Arc. And that's the thing, right? If you don't aggro the big boys, and you don't, maybe snitches can get you if you're, again, not paying attention. That's not the same tension, right? And the thing with something I don't have a lot of Escape from Tarkov experience, but Vigor is an extraction shooter. And anytime you enter a building in Vigor, you're checking it. Anytime you're outside, I'm going to get to the bush and look over the map and see, can I see anyone? Okay, I can make it to this building. Arc does not have that. It doesn't. It lost that the second they put in aggression-based matchmaking. And that's why I'm not enjoying Arc nearly as much. And this is a game where, like, if you ask me right now for game of the year, it would be hard for me to choose between Arc and Kingdom Come for last year. I love both of the games, but when I go into 6 Stella Montis matches in a row and nobody is fighting, what am I playing? Now, again, I have the option to be an asshole, but you really don't have that option, because if I'm in lobby, right? Lobby and Stella. If I'm in lobby and everyone else is friendly and I start shooting, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So this is why we had a disagreement on it. We didn't go too deep in it, but like I hate that aggression based matchmaking exists because there is no. Let me rephrase. I hate that they told you
That there's
that
aggression based matchmaking.
Based matchmaking exists. I
I
honestly couldn't
actually
care
agree
less.
with that.
I could not care less if it existed, but the fact that it does, and I'm not trying to talk shit about you because actually you stopped about it when I was kind of a dick about it. But you were like, are you sure you want to do this and fuck with your algorithm? And I was like, I don't give a fuck about my algorithm, Brett. It was not that aggressive. But like, that's basically what I said. Like, I don't give a fuck. Because if I'm going to go in and do husks and I die to a player, that's the game I'm playing. That's the tension. That's the risk is, holy fuck, I have 40. There has not been one time, and I feel like you must agree with this. There has not been one time where I have been high up in husks or wasps or shredders where I've been, this will be bad if I find a player. It'll be, I have to get the extract and I've got to avoid the arc. I've never been worried about a player doing that. Now it happens. You get ratted. Something, it's not like you never attack players, but it's gotten to a point with arc where I'm more surprised and I end up losing fights. This is part of the problem. I'm so surprised by people shooting at me that I lose because it's so unexpected. Even the match I was telling you about where I just shit on a guy, right? There was another friendly player with me. We both killed him.
And I'm with you. Look, I understand what you're saying, and I don't even think it's wrong. But I guess I think that the difference of opinion that we hold is that I think it's a good thing that the version of the game that you want to be playing is at least still there. And if you just go in with, if you really just want to, you can go in with a few free kits to where if you do die, it doesn't matter. And you can be aggressive. And within a few matches, you will get into the game that you want. And I think that that's ultimately a good thing because it makes the game. And look, this actually is like a weird version of the difficulty settings. And like when people are like, what makes the game more accessible? I'm not saying every game should be more accessible, but for this game, since it's here, and I agree with you largely that I think that they should have never actually confirmed that aggression-based matchmaking was in there. They should have played coy and never said it. That way you had the suspension of disbelief of not knowing, like, why is everybody so friendly in this run? Did I just get put into a run where for some reason everybody's friendly? But now you know why it was. But to my point, I ultimately think it's a good thing that at the very least, this is a valve that allows you to eventually, in a pretty short amount of time, mind you. I mean, I fucked around with it on my own just to see out of curiosity before. I've done like within 2 or 3 rounds of acting a certain way, you're usually in the lobby that you want to be in if you actually want to be in one of the 2 lobbies. The difference for you is that you just want the game to always be that, which I understand, but at least you can still get it.
That's not what I want. I don't want a PvE game, and I don't want a PvP game.
I get what you mean. You want the game that literally does make you wonder if it's going to be one or the other.
I want to see a raider across and go, oh, fuck, and like watch the dude. Instead of I see a raider across and I hear, hey, don't shoot. Fuck you, man. Like the interaction that we've had, it may be fun. It may be wholesome. We had that time where we got on the train and we were dancing with dudes. You remember that?
Dude, that was fucking great.
That was funny as hell.
So good, yeah.
But honestly, that moment would hit me more in marathon when I've just done 50 rounds of like, oh my God, everyone's killing me. We just killed 6 teams. We barely got out. I have no resources. We did see a friendly team. They didn't fuck with us, but like, holy shit. And then you're at extract and these guys go, oh, I'm Bad Bunny. And they come out and they're fucking singing and dancing. Like, that's funny shit. And that's cool when it happens in a place where it's not supposed to happen. That's what makes it fun. But it's either PvP only in these matches or it's PvE only, and there is no sense of like what is going to happen. What's going to happen.
There is actually and your point stands at large, but there is an irony to the run that you're talking about with the people dancing on the train, because I don't think you remember that we had multiple fights that round, and then you were hiding, hearing people in prox chat trying to lure people out who were obviously not friendly, and then in an otherwise rather aggressive matchmaking, then we find 2 dudes dancing who did not at any point shoot. And you were, because of the match already, I could tell that you were like, I don't know if I trust these guys, but you eventually were like, I'm just giving it at the moment. So in an ironic twist, what you're asking for happened in that round, but you want that every single time, even though we got lucky and it happened the way that you're talking about in that run.
The point is that,
but I kind of like that too.
I'll put it this way: knowing that aggression-based matchmaking exists makes it to the point where, like, even if I get into a PvP lobby, if I get hit if I get shot first twice in a row, I'm not in PvP lobbies anymore. So there's no, if it was, hey, there's 100 matches where this guy didn't even shoot. Okay, he's in the PvE lobbies. We don't take him out of there. And then there's a middle ground. The way it feels to me is that there is no middle ground.
I think a middle ground would be fun. Or this is going to sound weird. I think that even with aggression-based matchmaking, to your point, I much like I've told you where I think it would be really fun for the game, maybe not great for the economy of the game, I don't know. But just like I said, it'd be really crazy if there was like a 1 in a million chance that a free kit could give you like a Tempest or an insane gun, whatever it be, a Renegade, something, right? But I mean, really low chance. I think it would be also fun if even with aggression-based matchmaking, there was a 25% chance, 10%, find the number, but basically every time it's matchmaking you, it throws in this little thing in the needle that just goes, here's your 25% chance that we yank you and pull you into a lobby that is not what you're usually into. I think that would be interesting.
But I would imagine you'd think they'd have to do that eventually
they're going to have to, just for player counts. Part of the thing is, with the game being ever more popular right now, you actually super go, and that's part of why the middle ground has disappeared, because early days when it wasn't quite as big, even though aggression-based matchmaking, they had already confirmed at that point it was there, it really was. Every raider did feel like, this guy shot me, the next guy didn't, the next guy did, next guy didn't, next guy didn't, next guy did. That actually happened a lot more. But since the game has grown so much in the past 2 months even, I felt it push you way harder. If you're an aggressive one, everyone is shoot on sight. And actually, weirdly enough, a lot of the times people shoot on sight with no communication. It's almost like proxy chat's dead. And then you have friendly, where everyone's talking and cutting it up, but nobody's really fighting each other.
Well, and I think that's the thing, right? Like, I've said multiple times that I don't really love the prox chat system. And that's not to say that it's not fun. That night where, I don't know what got into me, but when we were playing with RMG, it was probably the most fun I've had playing Arc Raiders. So shout out.
But a note for you for what you just said, though, as much as you say, I don't like proxy chat, about once every 3 days, you go, holy fuck, I'm going to have hell trying to say that I don't like proxy chat in the future.
But I think it's because people misunderstand my point, right? Like, that night was funny because, I'll give myself credit, I was using proxy chat with you guys to comedic effect, right?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
And, like, I was running around, like, we never found the guy, which I think makes part of it funnier. But, like, I was running around having a conversation with a guy in prox chat, like, oh no, I'm super friendly, like, I'm like, well, let's find each other. And then I would get off prox chat and be like, we're gonna fucking kill this dude. And, like, that was fun, right? That was a great time. But the thing that I don't like about proxy chat is that this is going to sound so fucking stupid, but it has turned fighting in a video game into a morality test.
I like that. That's cool. My brother liked that. My brother called me last night and was talking to me. He's like, dude, this game could be used as like a character study for like morality of people. And I'm like, honestly, it probably could be, because this game is insane. Like, the broad array of people's responses to things is crazy. Both people who are like, okay, we were talking the other day about how, and I'll say this with, I know I said it in text, so I don't know if you realized how lighthearted but also honest I was being when I said, you are an asshole when you talk about people who play in a way that you don't agree with. And it's funny, like, you just dig so hard into it. But to that end, where I'm kind of getting at is, you do have people who genuinely fit baby, pussy, whatever you want to call it, where you shoot them and they're like, oh, and I don't even mean playing it up. I mean, like, there are people that you can genuinely tell you just ruined their whole week. And I'm like, that's too much, dude. That is too much. Like, don't get me wrong, I've been frustrated and said some dumb shit whenever someone's popped me or whatever, but it's few and far between. But outside of that, for the most part, it is interesting seeing the actual wide gamut of people being like, fuck? Or even people who are super aggressive shit talking, and then the moment you down them, their demeanor changes entirely. Not even in like a forgiving way. They're just like, ah, shit, that was a good fight, dude. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, to me, like, again, it could just be the type of person I am. And that's not an insult to anyone playing
It absolutely
right?
is,
But
by
like,
the way. And for me, it's the type of person I am. Just to throw that out. That's
when I've said it, like, if I could be the worst rat of all time if I didn't hear them talking. And that's what I don't like. And it's not like oh no, don't shoot, and they're running away. It's like they're actively making me feel like a monster because I shot you with a rattler, a gun that doesn't exist, because we're playing a video game. And it's like I got home and I hopped on Arc Raiders, and then this guy who finally has a break from his 12 kids and his 6 jobs and his whore bitch wife has finally sat down and cracked the one Miller Lite he drinks. And he was going to play one round of Arc Raiders because he has an early shift in the morning, and he just
3 minutes
needed surveyors. And I have to feel him and his misery come through my headphones when I just want to jerk off on his corpse. But instead, I hear the tired voice of, oh man, I just got home from work, and I want that guy. Like, in my head, I want the worst things to happen to him, but I'm also not going to kill him because I'm not a piece of shit person. So when he makes me feel bad, like, I've actively shot at people and gotten them almost dead. And then they've been like, oh man, like, and then I've just left and didn't finish it.
But that's also a you choice.
Sure, but but we're talking about my feelings on our this isn't like a fucking IGN like no author review. We're talking about how I feel, and that's why I don't like Proxy. I'm glad it's in Marathon because I think I hope and pray if Marathon becomes this, I will never play it, and I will be done with these kind of games. But like,
I'll believe that when I see it.
But the thing is, when the dev team of Marathon is saying, you know, people are like, oh well, you know, what happens if you have good loot, and they reply with kill the other runners. I'm like, that's sick as fuck. When Arc Raiders go, well, you know, it was originally a PvE game, but we had to put this here so it was a little more fun. And it's like, people take that as, well, it's a PvE game, and what they've told you is it wasn't fun as a PvE game, so we put PvP in there. And I don't know, I'm like rambling, but I just don't want to be made to feel that I'm not doing something I should be.
Let's scooch to the other part of this question quickly, and then we can kind of move on to talk about state of play, because I think it's important.
That's why Arc Raiders is casual and Marathon is super hardcore. There you go, Judy.
So this will be important to hopefully go to the other side of this, because he does say, will Bungie be okay if their game does decent numbers or not? Which I think just comes down to, how much do you feel that, and I think we know the answer from what we saw with Destiny. How big do you think Marathon has to be for it to be okay for Bungie, even if it's not a massive success?
What does okay for Bungie mean?
Not going to cause them financial trouble.
That's an unanswerable question, though, because, well, but that's not even true, because Bungie's already in financial trouble.
Well, yeah. So, well, you know what I mean? Like, I guess at risk of Sony going goodbye. But to that end, and look, I think what I'm getting at here is, you can be a little vague with it, but I think what he's trying to get at is just, if this game comes out and it's not an Arc Raiders level of success, is that okay for a studio of Bungie's scope and scale, do you think?
Well, of course, because Arc Raiders' success is notable because it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. I do kind of want to throw this out there. Arc Raiders' success is kind of like Destiny's success, where everybody was like, we didn't think this game would be this big, and then it is. So to the point, there's actually a direct comparison to previous Bungie games. But Bungie's also a much bigger studio, and that's problematic to some degree because it makes them a harder thing to gear towards. But
when did Destiny come out?
2014? Does that sound right?
Yeah. So you're telling me that, so the second time a pop like this has happened was 12 years later? Like, that's my point.
PUBG was
like,
another
this
one.
Is not,
you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but
then Fortnite.
Fortnite doesn't fucking count. Fortnite's Fortnite.
And then Helldivers.
Okay, but again, you can name all of them, and that's my point. It's Warzone, Destiny, Marathon, Apex, Fortnite.
Sure.
I think I said Marathon for some reason, but
Cyberpunk, if you want to move off of it being specifically having to be like Cyberpunk is a massive game that didn't have to be multiplayer. It's a point being.
I think what I'm talking about,
I think
we're talking about more live service, and like
that's true. I guess because your point is like live service is inherently going to sometimes borrow from a different audience, so it's harder to build.
Well, sure, but
audience.
also live. I mean, Highguard died after 2 weeks. Like these games don't pop most of the time. They don't pop. Yeah. Right. The game I've talked about multiple times, Vigor. Again, it's like 5,000 players play Vigor. So
I think that's one of those size of the team is everything. The team for Vigor has to be just so reasonable that 5,000 players can support it. And I know that you just kind of said that Highguard's dead. I think it's important to note Highguard's not dead, but they laid off a bunch of people, and people were like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." But I think realistically, Highguard landed where it was always going to land, and I think that even the developers knew that. And there was always probably plans to go down to this team size unless the game was just a massive success. Because the team size they're at now, at least from what they're saying, there's a core team that's staying around to keep it alive. If they manage expectations well, this game can be a success as long as you don't want it to be a smash success. You know what I'm saying? Like if you keep things in tandem, like Vigor, you can have jobs for your developers for the people who do like this type of game, and then you can hopefully work towards making it bigger, like No Man's Sky, for instance.
I think it goes to my point. I just looked it up, and Vigor has 90 players playing right now. That's less than Highguard. Like,
wild. Yeah.
And to be fair, Vigor's old, but I don't know. I don't think Marathon. I think we're split between two things. Like Marathon is not going to be as big as Arc Raiders. I don't think, and it's not going to be as big.
I don't either. Personally,
the only way that it even comes close is that if Burnt Peanut and Nick Merckx and Hutch and all those, like the streamers, if they switch to Marathon, Marathon will be what Bungie and Sony needs. If they don't, it's not their main game. I don't know. Because that's what sells these games. That's why Ark is popular, because a fucking legume is on there playing fucking shooting people and being hilarious doing it.
I think you're right, and I think that's probably a substantial. But I do think that there's something to be said that I alone have gotten 5 people to buy Arc Raiders, and every single one of them has come back and said, "Oh my god!" So all I'm saying is word of mouth is a if you couple those two together, it's easy to see why a bunch of people who are chronically online are pushing stuff around. That's great, but then for the people who aren't chronically online, you're still getting that penetration because word of mouth is so good that people like my brother does not play a lot of games and definitely doesn't play a lot of online games and usually gets too frustrated. He's played more Arc Raiders than he's played almost anything this year in a year, realistically.
Well, he sounds like a Marathon player, so let's figure that out.
He might.
It's on Xbox. The point I was trying to make, which I kind of love. So like if you look at like Burnt Peanut and I think it was Gingy, they play together a lot. They were the only ones streaming Marathon, and they played with Ziegler and all the Bungie employees. And what you saw was, and I actually stopped watching it because I didn't want to see all this shit talking, right? His whole chat was either Marathon defenders or Marathon haters. And it was more Marathon haters than it was defenders until the ad ends and their stream, he starts playing Arc like normal. And he goes, "I know you're going to think this is an ad, but I fucking liked it. I had a lot of fun. I loved it. I loved the feeling of it. It felt like Apex. It was moving. And then you saw his chat go from shit talking to hell yeah, fuck yeah, Bungie. Let's go Marathon. Like, it switched immediately the second that he endorsed it. And that's the point I'm making in that sense. If these people endorse it, if these people play it, it will be successful. It's you, except you're not a peanut. You're a man. And you don't have his audience, right? So your 5 people, let's say he does the same thing and he gets 100,000 people to tell 5 people, right? Like that's how this all works. So
yeah.
It all rides on that. It rides on reviews. It rides on all of that. But I think, Destiny didn't have to be Fortnite to be successful for Bungie, and Marathon doesn't have to be Arc Raiders to be successful for Bungie. It can't have 2,000 concurrents, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. The people, Marathon, I will say this, I'm repeating a thought, but it is true. Marathon is closer to Fortnite than it will ever be to Concord, and it's not even out.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. All right, let's move into talking about the state of play. I think we spent a surprisingly healthy amount of time on a lot of different games. We spent a lot of time on Arc Raiders. We did have a question around it, though, so that's important.
Should do an Arc Raiders.
Jehudi seems to really enjoy us talking about Arc Raiders because we're like, hey, we're going to delay the episode. He's like, get on, play some Arc Raiders and talk about it on the podcast. I'm glad that you enjoy it, but also I see almost every time I'm on Arc Raiders, Jehudi is on. That man is playing fucking all the time. I appreciate the hustle. It's pretty good. All right. State of play, of course, came. And I want to start just kind of broad strokes with what we thought was going to happen. Because even though we didn't do it, immediately once we started talking about maybe moving for a number of reasons, Chris wasn't feeling well and the state of play was there. I felt like both of those reasons felt reasonable to just kind of push the episode. And thankfully, y'all's voices kind of confirmed what I thought was the best idea. So we were like, if it wasn't going to take me being away from my family for 2 days in a row and in a week, and when we have a bunch of stuff going on too, me personally too, I didn't want to do that. But I love the idea of being like, hey, what are our predictions? So Chris and I worked up our predictions the other day when we decided. So we worked them up on Tuesday. And Jehudi, to your point, it took a while to get there because I was doing other stuff. But eventually in the night, we did start playing Arc Raiders together. And while we were playing, I was finishing up my predictions and I heard Chris doing his. Like, he didn't say them out loud, but he was over here like typing away. So to that end, Chris, let's just quickly run through them. And then I guess we can confirm which ones are right while we're going, or we can just wait to talk about it while we're doing it. But I think it'd be more fun to confirm where we were right as we're hitting them. So you want to do one at a time each?
Yeah. It's funny. I sent this to you the way I did because I was like, in case I get it all right, there's a timestamp on this shit. So I don't know if
Is that what you sent to me? No, dude, I did not open it because I saw spoiler tag and I was like, I don't know what the hell. I meant to ask you when I was at work.
Yeah, and I sent you these, but I said,
I'm not opening a spoiler tag because there may be a picture of something that's important in here. I was like, I'm not fucking opening this.
I was just like, in case he wants to see them live, I'll put a spoiler tag on it, but that's what it was.
I feel you. Okay. I was curious, and then we talked about something else and it went away, and I never got to ask you about it, but I thought maybe you were trying, this is going to sound stupid. I didn't like hardcore believe this, but part of me was like, he's still mad about that Spider-Man thing. He's fucking... He's going to ruin something for me.
Yeah, so I spoiler tagged it.
Well, just thinking that I might click on it, but I was just like, this is weird. I don't know what this is, but I'm glad I didn't open it because I guess at that point I wouldn't have changed my predictions, but I don't even want to have known what yours were because I think it's more interesting to see where we went. So Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you first. Let's hear your first prediction.
Well, I got this one right because it was super easy and it was Marathon.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead. Anytime that ours match up, I'll throw there. I put Marathon will likely be mentioned at least, but it's gotten a lot of traction from Vidoc, so I don't know for sure if they'll focus much on it. And they focused a lot on it, actually.
Yeah,
so
it was the
that was
end
cool.
of show.
Yeah, it was a good trailer too.
Oh god, dude, the trailers are so good.
Yeah, I really I wouldn't say my opinion's changed in the game because I've never had a bad opinion about it. Once I really looked at it, and definitely once playing Arc and having a slightly better idea, because like you were trying to explain it to me before I'd even played Arc to have enough of a comparison point. And while I think you were saying earlier, like Arc is going to be a lot different, there's still enough about Arc that you can explain to someone what Marathon is by proxy of Arc. And just go, it's that, but everybody's trying to kill each other, no questions asked. And I think that's a reasonable comparison point.
There could be questions asked. I just don't know that every time there's going to be a question asked.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Was I right though in my assessment? I guess I was. That like in an abstract sense, I was like, you should try these because I think you'll actually enjoy the loop.
You're 100%. Clearly you were right. And here's the thing. You keep saying you think I won't like Marathon. I don't know because I think that you are, and I understand why the more I actually started thinking about our interactions and the way I talked about I do really like the positive interactions I've had in Arc, but I feel like by now you should realize I really enjoy whenever I get into skirmishes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very curious how like getting into skirmishes translates into we're sweating our dicks off because we're always getting into skirmishes. Like, how are you going to feel when we're in the mode? I'm guessing on the number, but we're in the mode where your kit has to be 100K or you can't get in.
Sure. Well, now,
and that's why I'm glad there's resets. We got to stop.
There's a really good question for that in particular, because in talking about that, there's the question of, just to throw this out there, I don't think that I would often, like, I told you that someone was saying that they hoped something similar to that idea was going to come to Arc whenever they announced the roadmap, and there wasn't something like that. There was like Bird City, which actually Bird City's a super fun map condition. And it puts people in the most vulnerable spots on the game, which is rooftops. So I really like that. It's a better map condition than I thought it would be after I started doing it and realizing what was going on. To that
Souls
end,
versus squads, also good.
People were saying like, hey, it'd be really cool if they made like a 40K kit minimum mode or something like that. I am unsure right now myself if even in Arc I would be interested in that very often. I don't think I'd never play. I think I'd play it, but I think you might be more like often because of what it's going to. That's a very hard motivator towards what you're talking about. I can't risk losing the big kit, therefore that. And that's not even the reason I wouldn't want to do it. It's just there is a point where it's all about interaction. I like skirmishes even when I lose, when it's people interacting. That's why I keep talking about how much I like proxy chat. Not actually, I do love proxy chat for the friendly moments because they can be fun, but even like the antagonistic one of the guy saying he was going to eat your ass, that was antagonistic. And then he was hamming it up when he was like, wait, you shot that person? You betrayed me. It's like, I told you from square one when you shot at me that if I saw you, I was going to shoot you.
That was my favorite part.
My point being was that in particular is what I like. I like the antagonistic as long as the people are adding the soul and character to the mix. What I don't like as much, and it can be fun sometimes, but what I don't like as much is when it's just a dude who runs up to you, shoots you, says fucking nothing. And I told you the other day that I told a dude who killed me in a skirmish, and he did a good job. I missed a few shots because I was using a gun I wasn't as familiar with, and he clearly just lined his shots up right. And at first I was a little disappointed because he didn't say anything. So just to kind of be a smart ass, I was like, I love you. And in the last minute as he was knocking me out, he turned his mic on finally and said, I love you too. And knocked me out. And that shit killed me. That's what I love. And if Marathon actually has players willing to interact on the mic system that way, I actually don't care if the skirmishes are crazy and sweaty. I want them to have character. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that's why I promise we'll eventually stop talking about Arc Raiders. I don't know that that's true, but we might. That's why I'm excited with Marathon, because they're resetting. And I didn't think I would like the resets until I was talking with Sean. What I realized was with resets, I don't care about anything I have. In Arc, because there's no resets and I can kind of keep it forever if I want to, unless
there is resets, but they're optional.
But you choose.
So ironically, I'm kind of, clearly I worked towards Expedition because I think the idea is interesting. I want to see how it feels.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. But I like you're always going to reset every 3 months. Every time the season ends, you're starting fresh, because now I'm going to go into that 40K mode. I'm going to lose. I'm going to be upset, but it doesn't matter because I was going to lose it anyway. In Arc, it's like I can keep my Tempest 4 forever.
If you really want to. I had to explain it to my brother today because he was like, I'm dumping stuff into this expedition. I was like, whoa, let me tell you what it is. Because if you don't want to do it, don't dump resources into it. And then when I told him, he's like, fuck that. I don't want to work towards all this shit and lose it all. And I was like, I do. That's why I did it. But, that's interesting. I would have never, I'm going to be honest, I don't think I would have ever thought that would be my response. But as soon as I started working towards it and playing the game, I'm like, oh, dude, resetting will be fun. And you get extra skill points and stash space. Let's fucking go.
Exactly.
It's the right carrot on the stick. All that said, my first one, and I'm actually going to save my actual first one for a little bit later because it's just too big of one, and I was correct on it, but we'll wait. One that I was wrong on, even though it was shown, Resident Evil 9 VR mode announced alongside new trailer. I was half right. New trailer, no VR mode. I think
so. We're only doing the wrongs.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about the stuff because we can go ahead and talk about Resident Evil Requiem here as far as I'm concerned. But if you want to say
about it because I turned off the stream,
so you don't want to see it. You're a big Resident Evil fan.
Yeah,
you have no interest in the trailer. You have interest in the game.
I already bought the game. I don't want to see more of it, you know?
You did,
Like,
actually.
I'm
You hit
good.
me up and were like, I bought Resident Evil 9. I'm not buying shit else for a while. That was your exact response. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I won't go into detail since you don't want to go through it, but seeing more of it actually made me, this is a better conversation to have around it. Seeing more of it has actually made me a lot more excited to finally play 8. And there's no way I'm going to play 8 in time for 9. I know that. So I'm not worried about that. But what I am feeling is I want to play 8 and maybe even 4 remake since you sent it to me. I think I want to hit both of those out. And I do want to actively try to play Requiem before year end. And that's good because it was never not the case. I never not wanted to play Village. I just decided to wait on VR, and then shit just kept coming, and too much hit around the same time as VR, and I just never got around to it. Actually, I did try to get around to it, and I discovered my VR was broken.
Yeah.
That's what it was, and it was bad timing. And then once I got them fixed, I was playing other shit, and it just was bad timing. So I've never gotten around to it. But watching it, I'm like, you know what? I bet 8's good, even if it's a little weird. So I'm excited to play 8 and 4 remake. I don't think I'll do them back to back. It just depends, because Resident Evil games aren't that long, and that's a good thing.
8 is the least scariest game in the series with the scariest section in the entire series.
That's wild. Yeah, that's wild. But I believe it, you know, it's the weird thing. Like I can understand why, but the game doesn't look overtly scary. I'll say that for sure. No. Like when I look at stuff on it, I'm like, it's set like a moody thing, but the atmosphere around the mood doesn't seem to quite match.
No,
but in a very Resident Evil way. You know,
I won't go into too much detail, but it's more of a Monster Hunter game than a Resident Evil game in a way. But
it's interesting.
Everyone who has played Village knows the part I'm talking about, and to me, it was the scariest. Any of these games, I couldn't imagine doing it in VR. I could not. No, I don't think I could do it in VR. You'll know. You'll get there. But yeah, I'm in. I'm in. Let's do it. Hurry up.
I want to throw out there that I am willing to say that while I may not have been right today, I believe that there is a world where it depends. PSVR 2 is not in the greatest shape, but I believe there is a world where Sony still goes, hey, we still do want to look like we're trying to support PSVR 2 as much as we can. Do you think you can make a VR version of this? So I would not be surprised if 3 months from now, let's say the state of play for Summer Games Fest, that we do get a VR mode announced, because we did not get Resident Evil 8 VR announced immediately, if I recall. No, or was it Resident Evil 4 remake announced? Didn't happen initially either. That came later. They were like, hey, we're doing a VR mode for it. So it could still happen.
It's cool. I played it before I got rid of my VR.
All right. So second one for you.
So we're going through all of them or just the wrong ones?
Go through all of them. Why not?
Okay. So I was right in a way about this one. Actually, I was completely right. And then I had a bonus bet. So I said God of War, Metroidvania, smaller in scope. And then my bonus bet was it'll be about Kratos going over to the Norse world. And I don't think I could have been more wrong about that.
You couldn't have been more wrong about that for sure. So this one pairs up pretty well with my very first prediction that I wrote down. And mine was really interesting because much like you, I'm a lot right, but in very small ways I'm wrong. I guess yours is a bigger way, but I said it's funny how mine's a little broader, so it's a little easier. I said God of War something for the anniversary, maybe finally seeing the rumored Grease 2.5D game, which technically it's pixel art. And I said, or maybe a remake of 1 and 2, like also seemed to be rumored, which it was is a remake of 1, 2, and 3. I said, if nothing else, maybe adding God of War 1 and 2 PS2 versions to premium classics and maybe even the PSP games. So I was wrong on those. And I'm actually kind of bummed I was wrong on those because I still think it would have been cool to be like, hey, we're remaking them, but if you want to play the originals, they're available today. That would have been fucking sick. That would have been a really cool announcement. All that said, though, when the trailer started, and I was immediately, before the Sony Santa Monica thing happened, I was like, clearly God of War remake. I don't even know how to describe this, but this is about to say Sony Santa Monica. And then it came up, and then it showed the 1, and I was like, yep. And then it showed the 2, and I was like, yep, of course. And then it showed the 3, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, why are they remaking 3? Not in a bad way. 3 is just really fucking good as is. You can play it on PS5 right now via the PS4 remaster, which looks and plays incredibly. So I was just like, that's a surprising thing. And I was very excited to see TC Carson. I was because as soon as when the 3 hit, it's like Zeus. I was like, oh, that's TC Carson. I was like, and at first I was like, oh, they're going to keep the original recorded lines. That's dope because I think that's cool to keep. And then they had him. I was like, oh, they're going to let him re-record lines. Maybe they're going to change things around just a little bit since it's a remake. And I fucking love that because I was really worried that if they ever remade them, that for consistency's sake, they would try to bring. I'm failing on his name right now. But modern Kratos. Yeah. Christopher Judge. I thought that they'd pull him back. And I was like, it's not that would be awful. I just think, why not let TC's legacy with the game still be there? And also, I think TC's a better angry Kratos, realistically speaking.
Yeah.
I have a hard time imagining Judge does a good job at being stoic and being kind of like being able to touch base with his feelings in a way that heart wrenches you because you can tell it's somebody who's struggling to be able to communicate their emotions clearly, but they know the importance of doing so. But I have a really hard time imagining Judge being like, your son has returned. It's like I can't see it. And so I'm so glad that he's there.
I think that's my take because I didn't play Ragnarok, so I only have 2018 to go with.
Yeah.
But I feel like Christopher Judge does that, like the stoic, like I'm like, you can tell that like in my soul I'm angry, but I'm not talking to you that way.
Yeah.
He does that better. But when
he gets
angry,
trying to keep himself under wraps.
Yeah, but when he does angry Kratos, he sounds like he's trying to do TC Carson. And that's why TC Carson is a better angry Kratos.
Now, I think the interesting thing is that, and I think might be why I remember being a little bummed when I finally realized, because I'll also say this, I think Judge does a good job of sounding like TC Carson calmed down. It's not exactly perfect, but I remember the first time that they announced God of War 2018, I think it was on video. I was like, I think that's TC Carson. Like, it sounds like Kratos. Because I knew it was God of War before Kratos even stepped out of the shadow. I was like, oh, that's Kratos. And then he stepped out. So clearly they did a good job of making me feel like it's Kratos still in vocal. But when I actually think through even some of the more calm sections of TC Carson's story, I think TC Carson would have had a slightly difficult time. And maybe I'm underplaying his abilities. But from what I had seen, I don't know that he could have pulled off the scene. I don't want to go too far because I know it sounds dumb to be like, I don't want to spoil God of War 2018 8 years later, but I actually think genuinely the best scene in the game is the one thing I don't want to spoil, and I don't think I can imagine TC Carson doing the scene where a certain character's in the doorway talking to Kratos, and then he says this fucking banger line back. I don't know that TC Carson could have pulled that off in a way that sold it as much as that one did. And to that end, I'm glad that we seemingly have TC. That's great. I am excited for this because I think God of War 1, 2, and 3 are fucking amazing games. And I'm also think that if there was ever a time where we need, and they haven't said so yet, but it seems to me, and I want to get your read on this, that these remakes are more about being Demon Soul style remakes where they're trying to keep the feel of the game in, but they are technically remaking it from the ground up. To that end, I think that this is going to be a hack and slash game. Do you think they're going to keep fixed cameras and stuff, or are they going to do like Until Dawn where they throw the camera over your shoulder for the remake?
I don't know, but I pray to God they don't change the games.
I think right now we need a big, like, and there was a rumor about Devil May Cry being here, and it clearly wasn't. But God of War was very inspired by Devil May Cry, and I want that kind of combo-y hack and slash game because they're not made very often anymore. So I think a AAA level remake of that sounds so enticing to me, and it sounds like this is one of the only opportunities we're going to get it.
Yeah, I don't know. To me,
if not a new Devil May Cry.
To me, it was I'm like iffy. I'm like up and down on if I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited at the concept.
If they had just said, if it had been a remaster instead of remake, I'd probably be like hyped. But I'm like a little frustrated that this is like clearly like a 2030 game.
I was really frustrated. I know that sounds bad, but when he said it's in the early stages, I was like, oh.
I was like, why did you show us?
And it's 3 games? Like, dude, if you said it's the early stages of a 1 remake, that's probably not going to take that long because you're doing 1 game. But you're remaking 3 games and you seemingly have recently started? That's my concern. Early stages is hard to actually put a grasp on. That could mean a lot of things. It could just mean it's not in full production. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's just started.
To be fair, they do have the games already. Like, but
Yeah, remakes go a lot
I don't
quicker
know.
typically. Like I think Demon Souls remake was made in like 2 years.
Yeah, like I'm very curious what they're going to do, because there's a part of me that thinks, okay, this is a remake of 3 games. They announced it. They didn't announce it as they announced it as a trilogy remake. What does that mean?
Oh, are they
you
even
remaking
separate
all 3
games? Or
games?
are you
Are
playing
you going
one,
to
two, and
make them
three
one
in
full
one
game?
title? Yeah.
Are you gonna cut? Are you gonna see? And that's my question. I know this is gonna sound very like fucking shitty, but it's a consideration. Are you going to tell me that the reason that you censored God of War is because you had to cut stuff out of the game because now it's one continuous story? So now I don't get to see Kratos, or I don't get to have a QTE so Kratos can get laid, or
Dude,
I don't get to throw a lady in a fucking ladder. Like,
bros
that's
before
a
hoes
big
trophies gone.
concern. Yeah.
So, dude, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my other question in regards to the trilogy remake. Is we were talking about it at work this morning. Whenever we had watched it, it was, do you think that they're going to remove the sex scenes? And I went from saying at first, because of their remakes, I was like, well, I feel like they're gonna be like Demon Souls, they won't. But then I started thinking about it more. I was like, I think they're going to. And that kind of bums me out. It's not because that's some kind of intrinsic thing, but it's a remake that's intended to try, unless you're doing like some Final Fantasy VII remake shit where you're doing an entirely different story and you're going to change something.
That would be actually interesting.
That would be crazy. Definitely considering that the threads for that's already in God of War, because the threads of fate that he goes and fucks around with, someone could have easily done that and changed the events of one. And I'm not saying they should do that, by the way. But my point being is, unless you're doing that, I kind of think it's a bummer. At that point, don't say you're remaking God of War 1. Say that you're rebooting the Greek series of God of War and you're going to make new God of War games that roughly follow it, but you're allowing yourself to make changes. But I don't know, because like Ratchet, here's an important thing too. They said remake. I go back to something that Sony did before, right? The Ratchet and Clank 2016 was called Ratchet and Clank. It was not called Ratchet and Clank Remake, but in many ways it functioned as a remake. But it completely changed the way that Ratchet and Clank interact with each other in that first game, because in the original, Colin talks about this all the time. In the original, they were adversarial with each other often. It was like them, and I think that was a great idea actually. Even though 2016 is a great game, they're buddy too quickly, and it doesn't necessarily sell the story of them becoming a group of a duo. And to that end, they called this a remake. I think there's a little bit more of a reason to actually stick to it, but I don't know if they're going to.
I was watching Jaffe talk about Son of Sparta.
I want to talk about Sons of Sparta here soon. Yeah.
He was talking about basically saying that it seems like Sony wants to sanitize Kratos to basically be who he was in God of War 2018 to be specific. Yeah. And I don't know how you show the quote unquote modern audience that Kratos anymore.
You mean OG Kratos?
Yeah, like what's a 17-year-old on Twitter think about classic Kratos? Classic Kratos is incredibly important. The person he was is incredibly important to 2018.
That's my thing. If he's not who he is in the originals and you start trying to soften him up in some capacity, 2018 story for me, for people who played 2018 and just have this understanding of, oh, Kratos must have been a bad person, but now he's trying to be better. Fine. I don't know what the game hit for them, but I will tell you the line I referenced earlier, which I think is the best line in the entire game. And I think that the entire story cruxes on that scene. I think 2018 story falls a lot more flat if Kratos is not who he is in the original games. It's so important to 2018 that I think 2018 completely doesn't work.
Wait, send me the line because I don't remember and I need context.
Oh,
I've beaten the game. But.
Look, it's the whole scene, but look, I'm gonna bounce over here in Discord and send it to you just because I want you to know what it is. So
I don't know that. And that's the weird thing about Americans, right? Is like, and I'm American, whatever. But like, we're much more comfortable with overt violence than sex. And that's not to say that, I guess actually what I'm referring to is just consensual sex. But like, I feel like we're a lot more prude about that shit than we should be. Like, I can watch Wolverine stab his fingers through a guy's face, and that's cool. But Kratos gets laid.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't know how they can get away with that.
Dude, in talking about this, this sounds crazy. In talking about this, I want to go play 2018 right now.
I'm thinking the same thing, actually.
The story is the story is so fucking good because of God of War 1, 2, and 3, and Ghost of Sparta, and Chains of Olympus. Like, yeah, that sounds crazy, but it all works because you see Kratos for who he really is, and against what other people like to say, definitely when 2018 came out and they were like, finally, seeing Kratos is less than a one-dimensional. Kratos is not fucking one-dimensional.
He never was.
He never was. That is the most bullshit lie in gaming industry news media bullshit.
Well, it's touristy.
It's so touristy. Yes, Kratos is one note if all you see is Kratos in the trailers for the games. But if you play the games and you understand what's going on, Kratos is a monster. But he's a monster that you can slowly over time understand, and you see it waver. You see him have moments of softness, moments of doubt, moments of weakness, and that's why all of it fucking works.
Well, dude, that's why, like, I've talked about this before, but like, there's the scene in Chains of Olympus. Like,
it's fucking so good.
It still makes me sad. I platinum. That's the only God of War game I've platinumed because I love it so much. And like, that scene still makes me sad. I remember being a child and like holding my PSP and refusing to press the circle button. Like, and like, that's all.
I know it would have killed it, but I have always wondered, do you think, I feel like it would kill it. That's what I've landed on over time. But initially I was like, what if they put a timer on this to where if you don't do it within a certain amount of time, you game over? Because the way the game's actually coded, you can just sit there forever.
I think they should have done that.
But a timer would have also fucking killed the mood.
They shouldn't have put a timer on the screen, but what they should have done was Far Cry 4 it. And if you stay there enough, there's a cutscene where Kratos just, I don't know, stays with his daughter or something, and then the world game ends.
That would be interesting.
But then it says load, or it's like, in Modern Warfare where it goes time paradox. Do the same thing. Have a cutscene where he stays with his daughter, and I think it was the underworld or whatever it is. He stays with her, and then the game ends. Even fucking give it credits. But then when the credits end, you get the screen that says time paradox, reload, and then you start again. And you let her go. Yeah, that would have been the best way to do it. But I don't know. We don't know anything. Oh, okay. We don't know anything about these games, so it's hard to say much. I just don't have faith excited that to talk about them. Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated to see it. I just don't have faith that it's going to be the same game.
Let's scooch the conversation over because, of course, the other half of that thing and the other half of the showcase was something that was really cool. We finally saw Sony shadow drop something. And I am actually very excited about that. Cool. I say finally. They shadow dropped Entwine, and they've done it before, but not with something with as much of a name recognition as this. And I think that's really cool because, like, shadow dropping Oblivion is fucking crazy. Shadow dropping an Elder Scrolls game, that's sick. So seeing them do it with a brand as recognizable as God of War is really cool. The game doesn't look bad. The game looks good. I immediately, let me find a way to say this. The game conceptually, I love the idea. I love the idea of a smaller scale 2.5D, or in this case 2D, side scroller, maybe Metroidvania style God of War. I've said before, I think that the series has a good thing for that. Like, it has a very obvious fit for it, much like Prince of Persia did and did a great job with. So I bought it for two reasons. I bought it because I do think it looks good enough. Secondarily, I bought it because I want to show Sony with my own, vote with my wallet, as people say. I want to show Sony that I want more of this. I want to see them experiment with more games. I have no opinion on the game because I was hoping to get a chance to play it today, and I just didn't quite get a chance to carve it into other things I had going on, and that's okay. But I am curious to jump in and see how I feel about it because I love the idea on paper, I think, and that made me go towards buying it. The only real thing I'll add to that as a final is, you said it in Discord earlier, and I felt it as soon as I saw it. I think it was a really bold choice to make this game $30. I think that's insane. I think when you look at Silksong being $12, if I remember fucking right,
15.
And then you look at this 15, and then you look at this, I think it's really hard to see this being 30, and me to immediately go to people, hey, to reward Sony for taking a chance on an IP like this and letting another developer make a small game, go buy it. I can't even do that in good conscience because I think it's too much money without. Maybe I can do that once I play the game and I know how I feel about it. But have a sneaking suspicion, and this is not a bad thing. I have a sneaking suspicion I'll play it. I'll think it's good, not great, and that's fine. That's enough for me. But I think $30 for the type of game it is kind of demands great, if I'm being honest. And so I'll be curious to see how it lands for me. But I think 20 would have been a much better standpoint. I think 25 is not ideal either, but still better. $24.99. I think $29.99 was a really interesting choice. So, Chris, I know that I already bought the game. You can download it at any point and play it and see how you feel about it. But I know that you mentioned before you knew that I bought it already that was the thing that kind of stopped you from jumping in and seeing what it was about. So you want to expound on that at all?
Yeah, I would be honest. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I thought this looked fucking horrendous.
Why so, out of curiosity?
It looks stiff. I think it's ugly. There's not a world where this is a character and a story I wanted to play. Like,
I think the choice of time period is very interesting. Not necessarily in a good way.
Why do I want to play Kratos while he still looks like Eminem? Like, I don't. What world am I not swinging the blades of chaos and using them to platform and get to areas? Like, who wants to play this?
I see. That's where I'm at. I think it'll be probably good, and I say good in the thing of like, because there's always context, right? I think something can be good but feel not good enough for what it could have been for the IP it's around. So I think this game as an indie game might have been like you play and be like, oh, this is good. Like, you know, it's doing things. But I agree with you. Whenever I was originally thinking, before Prince of Persia even came out, right, before they announced Lost Crown, I remember saying, like, I thought God of War made a lot of sense for a Metroidvania game. But that's because for me, I was thinking back to how they very successfully turned Batman, in my opinion. And also, Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate is also good, not great. But it's unique and fun, and I appreciate it's there because they did everything they could to take the Batman Arkham formula and move it into the Metroidvania realm. And thinking about what Kratos is in the Greece realm, that was my thought. Oh, it'd be so cool to see how they work in the change of Olympus and maybe some other things as something you can do to change the way gameplay feels. And maybe they're doing that with the spear, but that's not his iconic weapon. You know what I mean? Like, I was wanting to see them do it with other stuff like that, and I am a little bummed that you're not. Like, I would have wanted to see, you remember in God of War 3 when you get the little claws from Hephaestus that you can use to like grapple to stuff? That would have been really cool to see how people like, oh, how do I work out grappling to things with different weapons? I thought that would be cool. It's fine that they didn't go that route, but I would have been much more excited than that. I was also a little surprised to see, I wouldn't say bad. I would have probably preferred for this to be 2.5D or hand-drawn. It being pixel art is not a bad thing, but it surprised me. And I don't think it was the most obvious fit.
Unless I misunderstood what they were saying on Sacred Symbols today, I guess the developer Mad Cat or something like that.
Something like that, yes.
They specifically develop their games to work on an NES.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's
kind of cool.
Exactly what I meant, but that's why the game looks like what it is. I don't think
it'd be NES. It'd probably be SNES, right? It's
one of those.
Too much detail.
Letters NES. I don't remember if there was an S or not.
Yeah.
I was at work, but I don't know. I just like, I get that, like, the idea that I had is contrived. Mega Cat. The idea that I had was contrived, but also, like, imagine it's the end of God of War 3 and Kratos survives, and what you see is almost a reverse Metroidvania where you start the game with all the shit Kratos had at the end of God of War 3, and like slowly as he's making his way and battling through bosses to the Norse realm, he loses all his stuff until you end the game with him reaching the Norse realm and taking off the chains of Olympus, right? Like, that would have been more interesting. And now I got to see fucking Greek Eminem and his brother fight monsters. It doesn't even make sense to me conceptually. Like, there's a Hydra in the trailer, and you expect me to believe that two dudes can beat a Hydra?
Yeah, that was one thing that kind of took me out of the game whenever I was looking at it. I thought it's really weird that they're showing Kratos already fighting these things before he's old, because it kind of takes down the impact of seeing Kratos do this in God of War 1. Not massively, but in a way that kind of makes me go, it's okay. Well, he's already dealing with all these beasts we see in later games, but just immediately, like as a kid. I'm more excited at the idea idea of having Demos as a playable character, I actually do like that. I think that's pretty neat. And actually, this is going to sound even crazier. What I would have really been okay with, though, I think they want the recognition of Kratos. I actually think the coolest way to have done
But
this.
it's not Kratos.
Oh well, it is and it isn't. But yeah, your point stands. but where I was going with that is, I think the coolest way to have done this while not having to overly fuck with this thing, and also, look, we already know any side story that's going back into the Greek, we know that it can't be ground shaking enough to really change much of what's already there, because it fucks with the way other things go. Exactly what we're talking about with the remake, right? If you change too much, the later games don't feel right. The story's not hitting right. You can't, like, I love Ghost of Sparta and I love Chains of Olympus, but anything you do in those games can't fuck up God of War. You can't fuck up God of War 2 or God of War 1 with Chains of Olympus. You get what I'm saying? Like, you have to make sure that it doesn't ruin those games storyline wise. So you can't make someone think Kratos might die. Whereas in the next God of War game, if it's the most recent one story, you can be like, Kratos might die. And you can actually have that belief of, oh my God, Kratos might die. But you can't, when you're playing this game, you can't go, oh my God, what's going to happen to Kratos and Deimos? You already know what happens to Kratos and Deimos. They've covered that in Ghost of Sparta. But what I think would have been interesting is to do a God of War side scroller game. And since we know that Deimos lives to be basically an adult in Ghost of Sparta, I thought the fun thing would have been to have you play as Deimos from the get-go. Because if you think about what the story says, Deimos is actually supposed to have been the marked child, but by the gods trying to get in the way of fate, they ended up fucking up. And then Kratos, who tattooed the mark on him in memory of his brother, became the marked child because of them trying to tamper with fate. And so I think that clearly Deimos is supposed to be a special being. Let him be the main character of the game. Then you can do all sorts of story shit that doesn't fuck with the way that God of War works, and you can have fun and interesting things going on. That's my 2 cents. That would have been a much cooler game. Not to say I'm not excited for this. I'm just very excited, and I wish I would have gotten a chance to play it, because I do want to talk about what the choice to do to go this route does for how I feel about the game. It was a bold choice. The question on whether it was a good one remains to be seen until I play it, but we'll see. I know I did see today that Jaffe didn't like it, but Jaffe's also, to be fair, I think Jaffe seemed to think 2018 God of War was pretty good. He didn't seem to like Ragnarok, but I also think that Ragnarok fails in a lot of spots. So let that be what it is. Well, go ahead.
The only thing I'm going to say, because I don't want to talk too much shit. I haven't played it. I do want to commend Sony for doing something different. We shouldn't be lost that they're doing a different thing. This is a different type of game they normally would make.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're doing it. I just wish I didn't hate everything about it so far.
So to the thing that I looked up that we were talking about earlier with MegaCat, they are both a developer and a publisher for, and I knew this was happening. I didn't know that they were one of the big players in it. There are new games for Sega Genesis and NES and SNES and all those systems that have been coming out, being published for those systems since 2016. So in 2016, there was a brand new NES game published for the NES on cartridge.
Was it good?
To play on a real NES, and they've done a lot of them. Some of them they've developed, some of them they've just been publisher on, just to throw that out there. So yes, they have primarily made games with old systems in mind. So that's something that's very important. They were also the people who were behind the Backyard Baseball coming to the new systems.
Okay, interesting.
So that's interesting. So this is their first time doing they did Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. So that's interesting, seeing how that's ended up going off. Point being, this is one of their earlier things into making a big console modern game, but it makes sense that they would make a game that is stylized in the way of a, because I mean, the game clearly looks too detailed to actually be on either of those systems, but it's the age old, it's the way that your brain thought SNES games looked.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though they didn't. So,
yeah. Slugfest 2003 was the beautiful.
I actually want to talk about who I think would have been. Yeah, I want to talk about who I think would have been a better fit for this, but I'm going to save it for a conversation we're going to have in a little bit. So let's keep going through our list. I think we probably. Well, actually, I think we don't. But I think that it's around the same conversation, interestingly enough. All right. So my next one was And this one was also right, but it was broad enough that I didn't go into hyper detail, but I'll take the W. Hopefully an update on a new game from one of Sony's more indie-sided devs. Probably too soon for another game from Giant Squid with Sword of Sea so new. So maybe an update from Ember Labs, since they've been silent and partnered closely with Sony for the first game. Maybe an Annapurna partnership. A Kena sequel, look, they were kind of shy on whether Kena actually did great or not. It seemingly did okay, good. They never said anything bad about it, but I didn't immediately think we'd get a Kena sequel. I just thought Ember Labs would make another original game partnered with Sony and go out. The Kena sequel looks fucking sick. I'm excited. Oh, yeah. I thought the first Kena was really good.
Yeah, that looks fucking awesome. Am I crazy in thinking that the way they were talking, I was ready for them to say, this is our first game under the PlayStation Studios banner? Like, I was waiting for it, the way that they kept, like, sucking. And I get that you kind of have to, you're on their stage, but they were, like, fucking, the cock was touching the lungs a little bit there. And I'm like, understood.
Look, I'll agree with you that the way they were talking and the fact that this is a second, that I kind of expected to see it. But in a way, I'm glad it's not. And there's a really important reason. Seeing this go down reminds me of the way Sony used to act. And I think that now that the acquisition wars have calmed a lot, they're not actively going crazy. You don't have to worry about someone being bought up, and Sony's been burned enough times, and a lot of people have been burned enough times. What I think is more likely to happen if they get bought at all, I think we're looking at a sucker punch situation. I think Sony keeps going. They let this game release. They see the really early response and, more importantly, reviews for the game. And if, much like Sucker Punch with Infamous 2, they have yet another game with them that does really well, responds, like people seem to be into it, even if it doesn't necessarily sell gangbusters, they see a good positive response from reviews, then I think Sony might be like, are you interested in us purchasing you and becoming part of PlayStation Studios? Whether or not I think they should is a complicated question, because seeing all the purchases and closures and everything that have happened, I'm kind of okay with Ember Labs just continuing to be independent, but just working with Sony as much as they can. But then on the flip side, I've got to be honest that we were talking about Detroit earlier, and I remember being so excited to see what Quantic was going to do after Detroit. And their most recent fucking thing that they're going to do is a game that looks awful to me. And then the seemingly non-existent Star Wars Eclipse, which actually does have an interesting, like, I'm interested in the concept of what that could be, but they didn't even show anything, so there's so little to go off of. There's a world where I can see Sony buying Quantic Dream and us already having another interesting, love him or hate him, another interesting David Cage game out by now. And we don't. And so part of me goes, maybe Ember Labs being bought's better for them to continue to put out games, because if they try to stay independent for too long, they may pivot and try and be like, we're going to publish games and do this and that and take money from Chinese companies. And then it's going to fucking all fall apart. That's kind of my worry with Ember Labs. So if it's between the two, I guess them being bought is the one I'd prefer.
I think it would be an interesting target for Sony because they do the games, obviously, but then they're also like a 3D animation studio on top of that.
Yep.
And you guys know who the best animation studio is in 2026. It's Sony. So
I have an unpopular opinion that I think Sony Pictures Animation has actually been the best animation studio for a long time. Even if that doesn't necessarily track out in movie sales. It sometimes does, sometimes it doesn't, right? Like Hotel Transylvania movies are actually pretty big movies. They did really well, and they look great. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2 are impeccably done. They're so good. Spider-Verse fucking bangs from an animation standpoint. Like if we're just talking raw animation, they have been so good for so long.
Have you watched K-Pop Demon Hunters yet?
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't.
But Mitchell's versus Machines, also a fucking banger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I told you this.
Morbius?
Initially, I literally thought K-Pop Demon Hunters was a crossover between a K-pop band and the anime Demon Hunter. And I was so confused when people were talking like, oh, music. And I was like, what the fuck? So I guess that would be the thing. Is like, it's Demon Hunter. Maybe they like did like, when people used to be like, oh, you get high and you watch this movie with Pink Floyd's The Wall on.
Alice in Wonderland. And it's Dark Side of the Moon. What the fuck?
I don't know what the fuck it is. Whatever it be.
It works too. It's fucking sick. You should do it.
My point being is I thought maybe that was the goal. Like they were like, oh, we redid a Demon Hunter movie where we synced it up with a K-pop band. And then I found out it's an animated movie from Sony. And I was like, I feel kind of stupid, but also I completely understand why my mind went there.
Yeah,
So I haven't watched it. I'm not a big K-pop fan, and that kind of takes away from my want to watch it. But I'm sure it's good because they are a good animation studio. And even their movies that didn't do incredibly well, like, look, I think I said this not long ago on the show, or at least I said it to you or someone in like a conversation outside of the show. The Emoji Movie is not a great movie. It is animated really well, and it's not a bad movie.
Okay.
It's just not a great movie.
I made a movie about emojis, man. That's crazy shit. All right, so my next prediction, I got nothing else right, by the way. Well, I got like half of one right. My next prediction was GTA 6, and that wasn't there.
That's a wild prediction, man. I kind of appreciate that you swung for the fences. But here, I'll join you. This is not, I'll go ahead and let this one go. It's not that it's the same prediction. It's more just in a kind of similar boat. Let me find it real quick. So I said, this one's a stretch, but Remedy / Rockstar show first reveal of Max Payne remake with Sony having marketing partnership like they did with Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And that clearly didn't happen either.
I think my logic was good. I think I told you my logic was it's a game that's seemingly a love story. Valentine's Day is this weekend.
Yeah.
Why not do a story trailer about their love story that's like a Valentine's Day kind of thing? So the logic fit, and Sony apparently has marketing rights. So we'll see.
Oh, I don't think it was a bad logic. I mean, I didn't necessarily think it was going to happen, but I would have thought if it did happen, it would have been clever. Like, it'd be like, oh, that's a good move.
The last trailer was 9 months ago. You know?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get a trailer on Sunday. That would be fucking sick. Or tomorrow. What am I talking about?
Yeah, we'll see. All right, man. Let's see. My next one, I was right, but again, kind of half right because of what I did. I said Soros or a brief mention to say that it'll get a dedicated state of play closer to release. And instead, it just got a pretty healthy check-in. With that, I want to go ahead and say, first of all, we haven't really said anything across the board. I think that this was an overall really good state of play. That doesn't mean there weren't a few moments where I was kind of like, I don't really care about this, but I think it was consistently doing cool stuff and constantly showing enough different stuff that I was like, I think it'd be hard for someone to walk away from this and go, nothing I saw was for me. And that's a good sign, first and foremost.
I genuinely think this is the best conference I've seen since E3 ended.
I think I might agree with you. And with that in mind, I want to say that this showcase did something that I think very few showcases actually manage to do anymore. And part of that is because of the way State of Play is done. This State of Play changed my opinion on how I felt about 3 games. And that's important because there are games that initially I was like, I don't necessarily think they're going to be bad. I just don't have any interest in playing them, or I don't think that they're my type of games. The first one that I'll go ahead and say is Soros. I was really worried when they were showing Soros, and I haven't played Returnal since they've done a bunch of updates. I do want to throw that out there. I know that they changed some things, but what I do know they didn't necessarily change is the game is still structured to where if you die, you have to restart this very long run over again. And it just is deflating. It is what it is. And I don't like that. And I have a hard time seeing the story through because I don't want to get 5 hours into a run and then die and then go, let me go back to 5 hours so I can hopefully see the next thing that's going to happen. I just don't give a shit enough. Seeing this, it seems like all of the things that I did have a little bit of qualms with from Returnal, they have fixed here. I don't want to say fixed. They have adjusted in a way that makes me more interested in it.
Me too.
Seeing them be like, hey, if you die, we immediately have a system that as long as you've been to the place before, you can immediately jump back to that planet and do like a soft restart. I am fucking down. Because to me, I've long said what I think a good roguelite does is it makes you want to iterate quickly and it lets you do this 30-minute loop 30 minutes to an hour loop over and over and over and over again until you finally get it. What they have essentially done is allowed this game to be a multi-long hour game and story, but they've broken it up to where since each place acts as a reset point, it's a roguelite light. And I know that that's not normally what I'd want, but since this is trying to be a big 3D game with hours of long story and play going out, having it be that they've made it to where now you have these points where you can continue to, you've made progress and now you get to iterate on this section of the map, this new area. You get to iterate in 30-minute to an hour-long iterations on it, and then you can move to the next one. If you die, you only restart that same 30-minute to an hour loop, or you can keep going. I think that's brilliant, and it's exactly what I wanted, and it gives me the Returnal had fucking amazing gameplay. I don't think anybody questioned that. The game felt so good to play. So if you give me that with something that motivates me to actually want to play it and then even step away from it and come back to it, which I also think Returnal did a poor job of. I always felt like with Returnal, I couldn't go play something else and then come back to it. It just wouldn't work. That was also before they added the ability to save a run. If you left, you were fucking done. And that made me feel bad because I wanted to be able to be like, okay, this game's frustrating, but at least I can go play this, but then go play something else. I felt like it would take all the wind out of my sails and I'd fuck up. I feel like I could step away from this, come back, and feel good about coming back to it. That's awesome. So how you feeling about SARS? It sounds like you mostly agree with where I'm at. You excited to actually play it?
Yeah, I don't have much to add, but it certainly, that finding out exactly about what you were talking about, I was like, I went from probably wouldn't get into it to, yeah, I'll play it.
Yeah, so. For sure. And that's awesome. And I think that the only way that, I don't know, to your point about how E3 is and even like Summer Games Fest, those shows would not have taken the approach that this one did to be able to have somebody walk through and say, this is what we're aiming to do. We're trying to do this. You wouldn't have that voiceover walking you through the games in a typical showcase. And that makes me really glad that State of Play, and to a bigger point, what Nintendo started in many ways with
Directs.
Nintendo Directs. That's so awesome because you can do that E3 one where you do like the John Wick and you just have a trailer that goes through and it doesn't really explain much, and you have that moment, but then you can completely change my mind on a game I thought I wasn't that excited to play because I thought it was going to have all the things that I didn't like about the last game, and you just proved why I should be interested in this game, and that's awesome.
Yeah, so you brought up John Wick. You want to talk about that?
That was clearly not anywhere in my things, but we can talk about it real quick because I do think, first and foremost, I love that they finally did what they should have done all along, and they made it to where Keanu Reeves is reprising his role.
Yeah.
Smart move.
Yeah.
I live in a world, me and my wife looked at each other because she was watching it with me. When I got back from card night was when I finally started watching it. So she's watching it with me. And we both go, we neither of us have fucking seen a single John Wick movie. And we both go, should we watch John Wick finally? And I was like, we can at least watch the first one. And if we don't get on with it, we can just fucking forget the other four. And I was like, I don't think there's four more.
Like the first one.
I'm sure I will. She was like, is that the one where something happens with his dog? I was like, as far as I understand, yes. But yes. That's all I know. So, but I'll say,
back.
But it looks cool. I wasn't a big fan of seeing the CG stuff because it just looked like I was watching scenes of the movie, which I've seen people post. But once it moved into the actual gameplay, which I do think looked good, by the way, not as good as the CG trailer, but it didn't need to. I think the little bit of gameplay snippets they showed of in-engine footage looked good. And depending on the type of game it is, I could see me being interested in it.
Yeah, that's basically my thoughts. I was like, yeah, I'd play that. Okay. They look cool. Like, it feels late for this.
I am surprised it took this long, but also I think this is a testament to John Wick. Yeah, but John Wick has continued to be popular enough for this to work. It may still be too late if you really want to get into. They're not at the height of its popularity, but there's another John Wick movie coming out, isn't there?
As far as I know, I don't think so. There's like a TV show about the concierge, which again you don't know anything about, but I don't know if there's another Keanu Reeves movie coming.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of ill-timed, when this first started, I thought it was a trailer for a Kingsman game. So, I mean...
I knew immediately it was John Wick because I do think that it has a good style, but I can see why you thought Kingsman because it
was the bourbon. It was the...
If I'm not
alcohol.
Mistaken, I think the same director has been involved with those franchises.
You could be right. I don't know for sure.
So that might be why they have such a similar feel.
It was the suit, and then the voiceover sounded like kind of the way they talk in Kingsman to each other. And then he puts down the glass of alcohol, and I'm like, oh, this is a Kingsman game?
Well, also, that sounds fun.
Yeah,
but I'll also tell you, I live in a world where I've also seen none of the Kingsman movies, but I am aware of them.
They're okay. They're good, but you don't need to watch them. You need to watch John Wick. You don't need to watch Kingsman. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, they're both cool for the same reason, because in a lot of ways they're both the same movie. So
yeah. But I don't have to put up with British people. I probably still do in John Wick, honestly.
It'd be worse if they were French. Yeah, but he kills the British people in that movie. So
we were playing the other day. Sir, are you Russian? You remember that? That was RMG coming out there and be like, hey, are you Russian? This is a very important question. We need to know. You are the villain here.
I still love
so what was your...
I trusted you. Why?
I told you why you shouldn't. So what was your next prediction?
Ghost of Yotei Legends drops during the show.
Oh, so you expected you were just wrong on what shadow dropped.
Yeah. Yotei Legends seemed like a shoe-in.
Oh, dude, 100%. Let me see. I know it's not super far down in mine. Let's see. I do have it in here. I just don't know how I actually put it on here. Either way, yes. I said, might show Yotei Legends and announce its release here. I was exactly right on that. That's 100% what they did.
Crushed it.
Also, look, I missed out on Legends 1, so I never even tried because I knew I was way too late to come back to it. I don't think that this looks like something I'll play a ton. Like, I can't see it becoming what Ark has become for me. This looks interesting enough that I do want to play it and try it, because I think it looks like an interesting twist on what Yotei did, and it's kind of exciting for the fact that it fully leans into the supernatural aspects.
Yeah, I mean, that's close to what it was in 1. I played like 2 rounds of Ghost of Tsushima Legends. It was fine. I'm sure people will like this. It's not for me. I'll be playing Marathon.
All right, so we knocked that one out of the park.
Is crazy.
Agreed, but I say agreed, but also I feel like the people who want to play these things are two different markets. If I'm being real, because I'm gonna throw something out there. I don't think this is a surprise, and you may not agree with me, but I would say that it's not blatantly obvious to me that Bungie's existing audience with Destiny is an immediate obvious to transfer over to Marathon. I think that they're quite different games, and the people who really like the PvP aspect of Destiny might like Marathon, but that's also a might. But what I do think is a different thing is I think the people who like the raid aspect of what Destiny brings to the table might like what Yotei brings to the table, because you choose a class, you're essentially doing a raid to complete a goal. I can see some of that style of player base playing Yotei Legends and liking it, and I don't think that that's necessarily the market of people who are immediately going to try and jump on Marathon day one.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, look, we did pretty good there. I'm going to go to my next one, and I'm actually, I am and am not surprised. I thought that Horizon, and I just put MP game because I keep fucking forgetting the name of it. You said it earlier. So what is it called?
Hunter's Gathering.
Horizon. I think that's kind of a bad name, if I'm being honest.
It's a terrible name, and there's no colon.
Horizon Hunter's Gathering game gets a little snapshot to bolster the recent reveal, along with maybe a big show of the NetEase MMO. Neither of those things were here, interestingly enough. But I also think the NetEase MMO wasn't here because State of Play is a lot more focused on the console side of things, even though the PC one's there. And the NetEase game is not on console still. They have not announced it for it. I can't believe they have not announced it for it. Wild choice. I don't have much more to say about that. I actually have still not even watched the trailer. I've seen screenshots of the Hunter's Gathering. It looks like Fortnite Monster Hunter in the Horizon world. I don't really think that that's too far off, but you can tell me if I'm wrong, like vastly. Otherwise, I don't have much to add to it.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever talk about Hunter's Gathering. So,
you know what? I want to ask you one specific thing.
Sure.
Why do you think that? I always thought a Horizon Monster Hunter style game made sense. Why do you think the art style change came into play here? Is it to swing to a younger audience?
No, I mean, maybe.
Is it fatigue for the style?
It's probably just harder to make a photorealistic multiplayer game than a cartoony one. I don't know. I guess
what's interesting. That's fair, but I guess what's interesting is that despite being an Unreal Engine game, if I remember correctly, the NetEase game looks a lot more like a Decima Engine Horizon game than this in Decima Engine game.
Well, they probably wanted to feel.
I actually
like a whimsical adventure.
Is it confirmed that this game is in Decima? I actually don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea.
It should be, but I'll look it up.
It's not a game I care about, so
Me either.
I don't even know if it'll sell us.
Yeah, it is in the Horizon 2 engine.
Yeah.
So, all right. Interesting all the same. I don't have much more to say about that. Not for the reasons I used to. I think I can clearly say that I used to think there was going to be a true sense of Horizon fatigue, even within myself. And I remember being so worried that even the VR game would be it. And the VR game is ironically one of my favorite VR games. I think it's very fun. It's very good. It's a really great use of VR. And I don't think it's as good as Half-Life Alyx, but I think it stands up there as a great example of what VR can do, trying to do something similar to that's exactly what Half-Life Alyx is trying to do. Let's be a good show for what you can do in VR. And I think that was a great show for what you can do in PSVR too. So yeah, we'll see if Horizon fatigue is an actual thing that sets in, but I don't think it's going to. But I will be curious to see if this is a huge success or not. Horizon's a bigger success than I ever expected it to be, even though I think the first game is incredible and the second game's good. What's your next one?
Judas release date.
I can see why, but I just didn't feel like that was going to be here. I know that sounds weird, but that feels like a Summer Games Fest thing.
Yeah, but I wanted it to be here. And also, he's been using the PlayStation blog for like all his stuff. Like, that's where he's talking about the game a lot. So
True. Let's see. Yeah, my next one, I'm a little surprised that this one didn't happen, though maybe there's just a better venue shortly coming up for it. I thought we'd get a Starfield PS5 announcement. I was like, Flight Sim being announced at a previous state of play just feels like they don't, like, oh, it sounds bad, but they just view it as something to slot in here because it is a big moment. And being in a state of play makes it bigger than just a PlayStation blog post that says Starfield's coming to PS5. But maybe they're going to do it somewhere else. Because, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think recently someone said that there's going to be another Starfield DLC, or maybe it's a Starfield update that's trying to. I don't want to say that this is true. Throw that out there. But I want to say someone mentioned something about there being some talk about them trying to like No Man's Sky it, basically, where like they're going to do a big update that massively changes the way you interact with the game to hopefully make the game kind of have better legs. I don't know if that's true or just wishful thinking.
It's been rumored that there's like a Starfield 2.0 patch, and I think Mr. Matty Plays said he saw it on behind closed doors. So
okay. I'm down for that. I would love for the game to be in a better state before I actually play it.
It's funny because my final prediction that I got wrong was also a Microsoft prediction. I said Halo gameplay reveal.
Oh, campaign evolved.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I wanted that more than it was a good prediction, but I did want it. That would be fucking incredible.
My next one here, I'm just going to say it because it is in my list, but I don't think that there's much to talk about on it. And I don't really think it actually happened now that I think about it. But I said, this is vague, so don't count it as a big prediction. But I want a cool, small indie game that nobody knew about and is revealed for the first time here. I actually don't think that happened. I think every indie game was already talked about. We already knew it existed. And it was just bigger ones like Mina the Hollower and stuff like that.
If you're talking about the genre of indie games, we did get one. If you're talking about actual indie games, we did not.
So what's the genre of indie game?
I think Sons of Sparta is in the indie game genre.
I actually
I'm not saying it counts, but I'm saying when people talk about indie games, they would count that game.
They look at it and go, that feels more like an indie game, even though it's technically not an independent. Yeah, I did actually mean like a real indie game like that. Even if it was a partnership with Sony, which I guess technically that is what's happening with Sons of Sparta, but it's a AAA IP. So it's not in the same vein. So, it's God of War. It's not counting in the same way that I'm talking about. So yeah, I don't really think I'll count that one. What I will go on to, and I think we have a little bit here because I wouldn't be surprised if you felt similarly. This is less of a prediction and more of a anti-prediction. I said it's too soon to show Wolverine again, so I don't expect it here, and I was 100% right.
I thought Wolverine might have showed up, but they announced that they weren't going to be there, so I was like, okay, that's fine.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that they announced anything that would be there, though. They've gotten better about trying to do that and being like, hey, be reasonable. Don't expect to see this, at least when it comes to their games, which is smart.
Yeah.
I just didn't see them
post that. Said something, so.
Yeah, that's good. All right, what you got next?
No, I did all of mine.
Oh, okay. Let me quickly run through mine. The next one I'm actually even going to go through. I'm going to omit a couple because I don't think they're worth even talking about. I said swinging for the fences and not realistic at all, but Factions re-announced, revived at another studio, taking the reins as yet another game as a service attempt from Sony.
Brother, what?
That was my crazy, I don't think it's going to happen, but how cool would that be? And I think some of that is from the fact that a lot of what I like about Ark is exactly what I liked about Last of Us Factions. And I just kind of want to see that in a different package. And so I would have thought Factions would have been a cool way to do it.
Marathon
we also don't
March
quite
5th.
know what Factions was. How crazy would it be if we actually started to learn that Factions was kind of a pseudo extraction shooter? Because I kind of see that working.
Could you imagine if they'd beaten Ark to the punch and they were just like, no, we want to make a Horizon Hunter game. And we're going to make Concord instead of this.
Yeah, and they could have done it. See, like how crazy would it have been to just be like, hey, Concord didn't work really well, but we've also already bought you guys, and we have this basically finished multiplayer game from a team that doesn't want to say it. You guys are now in control of it. The bones are already there. You don't have to create anything. You don't have to create a new foundation. All you got to do is find a way to make this game interesting. And Naughty Dog will just what do they call that? There's a word for it, and I just am brain dead right now.
Advise.
But they'll advise. Thank you. They'll act as an advisor on what they're going for. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I thought they were going to do. Honestly, that was my suspicion before they closed the team. I was like, I mean, they're clearly going to put that out there like that. So I don't know. I honestly don't know why they didn't. They should have.
It must have been that shuttering the team and doing the full return where no one gets to have the game and the game doesn't get to exist at all. There must have been some crazy tax benefit for that specific layout. Has to be.
There's a copy of Concord on my shelf, brother. That game exists.
you just can't play it.
Did you know I was reading, I was watching this YouTube video, and there was one person who periodically still logs into Concord.
Hell yeah.
You see him pop up on the little thing.
Hell yeah.
It's one dude. It's crazy.
My next one is also in the games as a service boat, and I actually thought this one was more likely. I say more. I don't think I never thought it was a sure fit because there's a rough patch, but I was hopeful that since Marathon kind of went through something similar that this would work. I said it maybe another look at fair games, hopefully improved from early opinions. Because if you remember, regardless of how Marathon was not a runaway success with its first beta. It was kind of it could be good, but there's a lot of questionable things that I don't really think are great. And then they showed it again. And since they've been showing it again, everybody who was like, it could be good, but let's see, is like, oh, okay, it's probably going to be good. So to that end, I was hoping Fair Games might get lucky enough to go, hey, even though some of the early playtests weren't overwhelmingly positive, they were able to key in on what people did and didn't like and refine it towards a better version of it. But now, I don't know if I want to say this. I don't want to say that it not being here makes me think Fair Games may not actually ever make it to market, but it does raise a little bit of concern that this game may actually just eventually get canceled. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't see a world where it's successful. Doesn't mean it's going to get canceled, but I don't see a world where it's successful. Yeah.
All right, that was it for me. That's my final one.
Hell yeah, brother.
So what I do want to talk about is all the things we did not get around to, of which there are many. We talked about how much of a banger this is, and it wasn't a banger because I was constantly right and all my predictions were hitting. Because even the predictions I got right, there was elements of them that made me more excited. Like I thought we'd see something from Ember Labs, and then we got a Kena sequel, and that's way more fucking exciting. I say that. You know, I'm not always one to think that a sequel is a better gift. I actually probably would have been equally psyched to see anything from them, but I thought Kena was so cool that I'm glad to see that we are getting at least one more Kena game. And this looks really good. But also, I want to throw out there, I found it a little ironic that we get Kena here, and then we see PlayStation finally being like, hey, we're also getting Beast of Reincarnation. Because this sounds bad. Beast of Reincarnation still looks good, and I'm glad for Game Freak to be doing something different. Kena and Beast of Reincarnation kind of seem like similar games.
They do.
Not in a bad way, and they're probably not overly similar, but looking at them from a trailer, it's like, huh.
Yeah, I'll play Kena for sure. I like that. I liked what I played of the first one. I never finished it.
I like Kena because I bet this is probably why you liked it too. Though I did think that this was a bold choice of them. Kena had surprisingly difficult combat for a game that looked like it was trying to be family friendly. And I have a number of friends who got it and really thought the world was super charming and they wanted to play it and wanted to see the story, but they couldn't beat some of the boss fights because you had to have parries on fucking point for some of them. And I thought that was a cool choice. but I think this looks more like something I could see having a parry heavy combat thing, because even though it looks multi-age inviting, Kina not being so young here, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but Kina being a teenager here makes it easier for me to think that this game might have more difficult combat. Kina looking so young and kind of like Pixar-y in the first game, and then having those little cute spirit dudes who are not part of combat, it seems like the wolf here actually is, just kind of made me be like, I think there was a group of people that just wanted this to be you wander through a pretty forest and find little cute stone boys and put new hats and stuff on them and see a story. And that would have been fine, and I would have still enjoyed that, but I thought it was so cool that the game actually had legit good combat.
Yeah, I liked the combat a lot. I thought, like I said, I thought just about everything on Kino was fun. I just fell off of it at a certain point. But I'll probably give it another try and then see where it goes from there, because I thought that looked fantastic, and I will say the other game, the one you just brought up,
Beast of Reincarnate. Yeah, Beast of Reincarnation.
I was super on the fence about it, and then they showed Sekiro combat, and I was like, okay, I'm buying that.
Oh, it looks good.
It does.
Yeah, it looks really good. And I thought that at the Xbox showcase, and then here it just kind of stealed that over. I was like, this looks good.
There was something about it that, I'm not accusing them of anything, but there was something about it that felt AI generated. Like the look of the characters have that AI sheen in some places. I don't know how to explain it, because they're not. So it's not always, but there were points where you're watching this trailer and I was like, yeah, this looks a little...
This is going to sound weird, and I don't mean this to overly hate on them, because I actually think this game looks really good, and it's so much more graphically pleasing than a lot of what Game Freak's been able to do under the strict schedule that Nintendo pushes for Pokemon. I mean, it's yeah. And I told my wife, I looked at her like, hey, these are people making Pokemon. She's like, what? This doesn't look shit like Pokemon. I was like, well, yeah, Pokemon games also don't get extended, like they have to hit the release date. They can't go, hey, our game is kind of broken, we need more time. Nintendo just goes, fuck you, the card game and everything else is already set to work around this. The anime is coming out, you're coming out. That's how it is every time, and it fucking blows. And I wish that Nintendo would not do it, but it is what it is. It's kind of like Marvel being like, hey, we're working with an unfinished script, but we're just going to make the movie anyway because we can't afford not to have a Marvel movie release this quarter.
Yeah.
And that's bad. It's bad for the product. And ultimately, long-term, it's bad for the business, as we've seen with Marvel, to be fair. All that said, I really thought Beast of Reincarnation looked good, but it had this thing where it made me feel like sometimes I saw it and I was like, this looks like one of the two options for new modern cheap Japanese game, in the sense of you either get a game that looks like that one that was shown that was like, I can't even remember the fucking name for it. It had a really weird name. It was from Konami, if I remember correctly.
Oh, Re-Anio or something like that?
Yeah, Rev Noir.
Yes, Rev Noir.
And that doesn't look bad, but it looks like generic Tales of Hoyoverse game. I can't say it any better than that, because that's just what it is. But all that to say, there's moments where that's option one of cheap JRPG, and then option two is like Dynasty Warriors, and it kind of looked like Dynasty Warriors version of, we're trying to be a little more photorealistic, but not really. That's what it made me think of. It looked like, you remember when during not Summer Games Fest, but the Game Awards, they started showing off Phantom Blade Zero, and for like me and you both were like, for the first like minute of the trailer, it had this weird like knockoff look, like random Korean Asian game, and then somehow a minute in the trailer it flipped into looking great.
Yeah,
that's absolutely what Beast of Reincarnation had a few scenes of, where I was like, what am I looking at? But overall, it looks fun and it looks good. And I'm not too worried about those little things, because this, at the end of the day, is probably, I don't think you can consider this a AAA game. I think that this is a AA game from a studio who usually works on a AAA franchise that doesn't get AAA treatment.
Yeah. You brought up Musous, so can we talk about Cock of War quick? Because that game looks fucking crazy.
Okay, I'm a little hesitant to talk about it because, so it's called Project Windless. It being called Project Windless,
fake game.
I am really worried this is a fake. I don't want to say fake game. I'm really worried that we're seeing what they want the game to be, and they have no bones anywhere near this. But at the same time, it looked a little bit like a game being played. So
It did.
I'm caught in between. Is this game pretty far along and they just doing the same thing that they did with Stellar Blade, where they just left it in a project name for way too long and it just eventually changed? Or what? I both laughed at this because seeing a dude, I could not stop making like foghorn leghorn jokes and shit like that. But also I kind of like how ridiculous the concept is, and how like from a European or from a United States perspective, not necessarily an Asian one, a game where you're playing as a jacked up roided chicken. It's just fucking funny. But also, I love that the story taking place within it was people being like melodramatic serious. Like, you are a fallen, shitty race of people, and we are the perfect. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Melodrama with a chicken. I'm fucking here for it. And I like that. So did you think, I mean, I'm glad that we both had the kind of, do I trust that this exists?
Yeah. It was weird because I'll never play this game because I don't care about Musos and I don't find them fun. But it looked cool. It looked cool enough that I was like, do I want to try this game? And then I saw the gameplay and I was like, no, but
Well, but hold on, hear me out. This is the thing I have a hard time landing on from the trailer. Is it a Muso game in the fact that it plays out like a normal one where it's just missions of you killing a bunch of people? Or is it a game with a story with real shit going on, but it happens to have Muso-like big scale battle? That's my question. It's all going to depend on how it's represented past that, because I don't have a lot of interest in the Dynasty Warrior games, because a lot of times, like the early PS2 games, I used to have fun just hopping into a mode and seeing how long I could survive, but eventually that just lost me because there wasn't anything else of value really happening.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of interested to read that book, though. The Bird Who Eats Tears or whatever.
Yeah, the bird that drinks tears. My thing is it being based off of a fantasy series. Part of me wants to be like, well, they're going to want to do something with the lore, but they don't have to. It could just be Muso. It could just be, because and I might be wildly wrong, and I don't know if you actually know from experience or just by knowledge, aren't these Zelda games that are called, what the fuck are they actually called? Like Hyrule Heroes? Isn't that essentially the same thing? Aren't those like Muso games? But do they actually have stories? I don't know the answer to those fucking questions.
Yeah,
I know it's made by Omega Force, which is the people who make Dynasty Warriors. I don't know. And I could be also way wrong about what Dynasty Warriors either has become or always was. I played the PS2 entries, some of them, never beat them. I honestly remember feeling like you couldn't beat them. The whole point was just to see how long you could survive in this gameplay loop. And it was mildly fun, but never enough for me to feel like I wanted to spend $50 on. I also couldn't afford $50 games whenever I was playing these games. I was getting them secondhand from people. So all that said, yeah, I thought the game looked really interesting. So what's the game that kind of stood out to you, man?
Let's see. You know what? Silent Hill Townfall looks fucking sick.
Townfall looks way better than I thought. I'm going to go out on a limb. This might sound kind of crazy. I know it sounds weird. Townfall looks more Silent Hill to me than Silent Hill F did. And I don't think Silent Hill F looked bad. I just think that something about Townfall makes me think Silent Hill more than Silent Hill F ever did in anything they showed. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for it because it feels a bit more like something that I'm excited to play in I'm going to get it. I'm curious to play F to see how it changes the formula, but this feels more in line with what I was thinking of. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a better game.
It looks good. I guess I just saw a tweet that made me laugh about it. It was like, first time you put a black protagonist in is the first time you go first person, huh?
I remember being excited because this was an Annapurna like collaboration, and I think Annapurna does a really good job of kind of weeding out talented people. Though if I remember, wasn't it Annapurna that had like a bunch of like crazy leavings and like the company kind of fell apart, but then part of like the games division stayed?
Yes,
I don't know, it was very weird. I remember that much. So we'll see if that continues to be the case. But for now, I don't have a lot to say about this one, but I just thought it was important for me to throw out. Dead or Alive made sure that it came back. I also thought it was weird to say the return of Dead or Alive, and then it's just a fucking remaster of the last game. That was a wild choice. But jiggle physics were in motion, and I was happy to see it because having that little, and they did say a new project teaser trailer. But I thought it was so funny that in the new project teaser trailer, the camera just sets on her cleavage for like a few seconds, and then it says "Dead or Alive." I
was like, "We're back, baby.
We're back, baby." That's what I thought. I was like, "This is the series that brought us girls playing beach ball in scantily clad bikinis. This is what I was here for." And I don't really like the Dead or Alive games. I remember even as a kid, if I'm being real honest, they're not bad fighting games. I'm not a huge fighting game fan. They are solid games, but I remember my interest in them as a 9-year-old was titties. I know what I'm about, and I'm not going to lie to you right now. I know what it was about, and I'm still about it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to play this. I'll just enjoy them showing titties in the middle of a showcase for a bit, and then I'll go back to the things I'm actually more interested in. And to that point, Chris, I want to talk about the second game that changed my opinion on it to at least some degree in a better thing. I think you remember my opinions, and I think you actually kind of held a similar one. When they first announced 4-Loop, I didn't think it sounded anything special, and I kind of thought it was just going to be a little come and go, and it wasn't going to be anything interesting. Them having the chance to show it here the way they did, and again, the format allowing time for the guy to sit there and talk about the systems as you're seeing the systems play out. This game is a lot more interesting than I initially gave it credit for. But I also think that it's a lot more interesting than the initial showcase showed. I don't know for sure that I'll play this game, but I think it actually does have some merit to go on the market because I don't think there's anything immediately like this, and that means that there's an actual niche for it to carve out. I can at least look at this and see why Sony chose to back it, and I'm excited at the point of I think this game is going to be a bot game, like a $40 game, much like Marathon are, and I think that's the right call. I am at least interested in playing this game, in the sense that there are games like even if you were interested in this game the way they originally showed it and you bought it and I didn't, I wouldn't have much of a reason to even want to play it with free access to it. But if you bought it now and like, hey, you want to play a game with me? I would hop in, no questions asked. I'd be like, yeah, let's see what it's actually about. I don't know if it means I would rise to the level of wanting to actually buy it, but I'm glad to have come out of this having a respect for the game that I completely lacked before.
Sorry, I agree. The podcast has been taken over by my cat again.
Yeah, this is the first time I even know that you had a cat, and he's into it.
Dude, he never does this. This is almost a little concerning.
You're worried? He's telling you bit. These are my final days.
This is genuinely like the longest time he's ever spent with me. Like that's actually crazy. Like he's around you, but like sitting on me. Maybe it's because I've got like one of those cat beds on my face right now. You know,
he's like, "What's up, man? Let me see that." So yeah, if you have anything else you want to cover, I mean, we could talk about 4-Loop's actual gameplay if you want to get into it. I think that I mean, if you saw, you know what it is, but it has more interesting ideas than what I initially gave it credit for, and that's a good lesson for me to learn to not be so skeptical immediately as well.
I think my biggest issue with the 4-Loop trailer, I don't have much to say. I thought it looked fine. I might try it. But I think the issue I had with it was that the frame rate, there were places where that frame rate was going like 15 FPS. And I know why you're showing it to me here. And I know it's early, but first impressions are very important.
Things like frame rate for that in particular, definitely when you're trying to actually do hey, I want to show you big things so you can kind of get a grand scheme of what we're aiming for. I think that I can kind of understand that. What I think is a little different is whenever they do the public beta that they were talking about doing and having feedback for, I hope that some of those crazy things, because like the one where the frame rate was getting choppy was the one with a lot of shit going on screen. And while it may be good to let people play that out like early days from the beta, I don't know that that's necessary. I think you can make sure that you make a version of the beta that lets people get a feel of what the game's going for, but you cap it down to things that you know you've already got within your frame budget so that you can have a good steady frame rate, because that's where I think it's important. If we end up seeing that the beta has really bad frame rate problems, that's unfortunate. That's the kind of first impression that I do think is important. If I feel your game doing that when I first get a chance to play it, it makes it a little harder for me to believe you're going to get it under control in the long run. But when you're just showing it and you're saying, hey, a little bit down the road, we're going to do this, I'm a little more like, okay, let's see what comes of it.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm looking through the list. I don't have much to say. I'll go through a couple quick ones. I was glad to see Front Slap is finally coming to PS5 with a big walk or whatever.
Yeah. I thought that looks really good.
Mina the Howler obviously looks fucking sick.
Of course.
Okay. The last one that I really have to talk about, there's one more after this, but I feel like it's pretty obvious what it is given what I did last year. But Yako Shinobi Ops.
Dude,
I thought that game looked cool as fuck.
I don't know how the fuck I feel about it. It looks old and new and bad and fun and good and not. I don't know how I feel about it. It looks. I'll give it this. It held my attention because I couldn't figure out how I felt about it, and that's at least something.
It looked like it
being 2027 was the thing that kind of made me go, "What?" I was like, "Why?" At first, before they actually said it was, and I was sitting there looking, I was like, did they say if this is from a certain person? Because I was like, what if this is just fucking like games as a service Tenchu? And it wasn't, but
don't put that evil.
Either way, I mean, it doesn't look awful. I just don't know where I land on it yet. But like I said, it held my attention, and that's important because even if I'm unsure of it, it's in my brain, and if someone brings this game up in the future, I know what it is. And it's kind of like the all press is good press. Even if I'm unsure, me knowing what it is better for the game ultimately than not knowing what it is. Which is kind of my argument. Like we were having that argument in the Discord about High Guard, and I still stand by. Regardless of how you feel about it, I think that it is really hard to make a solid argument that somehow by Jeff putting High Guard for free, seemingly at the end of the show, was bad for the game, and it's his fault that the game is doing bad now. I cannot make those things go together because all he did was put it in front of more people who might play it.
Yeah.
And they just didn't, or at least they did, but they didn't stick around. That's all that happened. And that means everything else is because of decisions that the developers made.
Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Jeff's allowed to be into games you're not into.
Yeah. I don't know how strongly that position is being held, but I just think it's so weird to say that's, even if you want to go meta and say that Jeff showing it did the game ultimately a disservice. Who allowed him to show it? The goddamn developers. It's still their fault.
They wanted to shadow drop it, and they got convinced not to. On them, like you said.
Every bit of it is ultimately their decision. And so I think it's really difficult to come and say, now at that point, if you really want to get into like, hey, they wanted to shadow drop it and Jeff had to convince them not to, you can say that Jeff may have done something to the game there. But just by announcing it, making it the final game of the show, I said this on the thing. It being the final of the game of the show was bad for the Game Awards, in my opinion, because it made it to where the feeling of the Game Awards kind of whimpered out at the end. But it wasn't bad for the game. If anything, the game got a fucking highly sought after spot, and that's it. I really don't. I don't know if some people are like, well, yeah, but it being there made expectations so much higher. I don't know that I agree with that.
Even if they did or didn't, it doesn't matter because they clearly had high expectations for the game.
Yeah, I think that's a good part of it. Before we talk about the thing that I know you're wanting to talk about, I'm going to quickly move through mine. I was fucking so into and so excited by the fact that we're getting essentially DLC for Neva Prologue. I thought initially, I had to go back and watch the trailer again. I thought it was a separate new game. I don't care if it's DLC. I'm playing the fuck out of this DLC. I'm known as the guy who doesn't normally play a DLC. Neva was fucking awesome. I'm playing this. I was super stoked to see it here. Which is cool to see.
True.
That's really cool. This is kind of a surprising one for me because I both think the game looks surprisingly, how do you say this? I don't want to say mundane. It doesn't look like it's doing anything too crazy or original. Crimson Moon looks kind of fucking fun. But I don't think it looks great, mind you. It just looks fun. Kind of like you're talking about with Yakko, where I look at it and I'm like, I don't think Yakko looks great, but I can see why someone would be like, oh, it looks fun. And I'm curious to see what it's actually going to be. The biggest problem I have with Crimson Moon is I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to be. Is it just supposed to be like dungeon crawling with friends? Is it supposed to be a story-based co-opable game? What am I like? That's the questions I have for it, but it kind of looked fun. And that's as much as I really have to say about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't trust the developers very much, so I'm gonna just not touch that game.
You know what? Who's the developer on that?
Probably Monsters.
Why do I know that name? I did see it on screen.
They're the ones who incubated Concord.
Ah, that's right. They're the ones that Sony ended up buying it all out from under.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it came up on screen. I remember being like, I know the name, but I can't put anything to it just yet.
They haven't put out really anything. They've been around for a long time. I'm good. I'm chilling. It didn't. That's the thing. It didn't impress me at all. Really, I was like, oh, this seems interesting. Like the most kick I got was when the one knight turned to the other knight and just nodded. I was like, yeah, cool interaction. That's fun.
Yeah.
And then it just looked kind of boring. Not boring, but like not fun either.
Yeah.
And then it showed who it was, and I was like, oh, good Lord.
Yeah. It doesn't instill the confidence behind it.
No.
I want to talk quickly because I don't think you have as much interest in this. You're not as big into racing games. I don't know if you have any interest in this one in particular. Star Wars Galactic Racer kind of got me because I already thought it looked fine. I thought it looked good, and I was like, I might, if you catch me on the right whim and I want a new racing game, I could see myself playing it. This showcase, the way they showed it, I got big MotorStorm vibes from this, and I fucking love MotorStorm. There was a lot of like car combat, but not like in Twisted Metal gun style, but more like ramming into and like destroying the opponent's vehicle so they can reset and keep racing. And I don't know how to explain it much better than that. I got MotorStorm 1 vibes from this game, and that excites me because the last time I got MotorStorm vibes from something was the game that they made, Onrush. And I don't think that game, that's not their fault, mind you. The game is fine. I didn't care for its particular take on racing, but the game wasn't at all like MotorStorm, and that kind of bummed me out. So this looking a lot more like it makes me more excited for this game than I was. I think this has actually become if they show one more thing that makes me go, fuck, this looks good, I'm just buying it day one and don't give a shit. I'll play it. So that's interesting.
My interest, assuming I have to buy it on my own, right? My interest entirely depends on the price. If this is $40, I'm buying it. If this is $70,
I think this is a $40 game. But if it's $70, we do move into different. If it's $50, I'll still buy it.
I personally wouldn't, but I could see why you would. Yeah. Even $60, I feel like it's not a bad price. But if this is a $70 full price, I don't know. I wouldn't buy it for anything more than $40.
Yeah.
And by the time it gets to $40, I wouldn't be. If it's $70, by the time it gets to $40, I wouldn't be willing to buy it for more than $20. So like it's like a weird sliding scale.
Yeah.
But it looks cool.
Yeah. I was just surprised to see it. This is going to sound crazy because I think that the Star Wars Survivor games are fine, like the Jedi Survivor or the Jedi series, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. But this is going to sound ridiculous, and maybe it's just me caught up in the moment. You know, sometimes you get recency bias. This is a surprising, maybe best Star Wars game I've seen in a while, at least in terms of my excitement upon seeing the trailer, or at least this trailer. Because like I've been so cagey on whether or not I'm going to like Star Wars Outlaws. I did download it, and it is on my list of games to actually play because I was unsure of how I was going to end up feeling about Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, not being a huge Avatar fan at the time and not really knowing how they'd handle it. And that game completely made me have a lot more faith in not the Snowdrop engine, but the team behind it. I can't think of the developer's name right now. But that Ubisoft developer, I have a lot more faith in them now, which is really cool. And it's the same developer, even though it's clearly a different team. And I think that game looks and runs really well, too. Avatar, not perfect, and it's thankfully better now. So I'm curious to see how it lands. But either way, I'm excited that a Star Wars racer game is not only coming out in 2026, but it looks as good as it does, while also not looking like it's trying to do like, well, it's 2026, so this has to be an open world Star Wars racer game where you drive up to somebody and blink your headlights and it starts a race. You know, I'm glad it's not trying to do Mario Kart World. Is that what the fucking name of that game was?
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the kid Anakin skin is DLC or is it in the game?
I don't know, but I was so excited that initially I was like, maybe it's just speedsters. There is 100% a fucking pod racer in this. I saw it in the trailer and I fucking was like, let's fucking go. Immediately, my wife was like, what are you so excited about? I was like, fucking pod racer. You see the pod? Like, that's a pod racer. That's what it is. So I'm all there because I was really worried it was just going to be other things. It doesn't have to be pod racing. It's Galactic Racer. It's all racers in the galaxy. Why would a pod racer not be included in that? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So hopefully it's in the game. But also, this is clearly a game rife with opportunity for DLC skins.
Out of curiosity, did that guy at the end, Glup Shido, have anything to do with Star Wars? Was that like a recognizable character?
I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who
maybe
Glup Shido is.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't eat, drink, and breathe Star Wars like some of my friends do. So I'm not the right person to ask that. I know a lot about Star Wars, but I'm not like exhaustive by any means. real quick before we get to we've already talked about Townfall. The other game I really want to talk about, and I'm a little surprised it's not on your list, but maybe I shouldn't be. Konami came with a bunch of shit, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. Castlevania Belmont's Curse looks fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I think it looks so good. I also love the Symphony of the Night style clones. Some people don't like that it seemingly refuses to want to go past that, but that's what I want. I just like those types of games, and I'm always down for more of them. And this being an actual Castlevania game is just even better. This being made by the people who made Dead Cells. Therefore, the people who made all the Castlevania Dead Cells DLC makes sense that they would be making the next Castlevania.
Well, hold on. Is Motion Twin making this, or is Motion Twin advising on this?
Motion Twin and Evil Empire are both helping on this game.
I felt like it said, like, supervised by, basically. Yeah, I'm gonna watch the trailer again quick. You can talk. I don't have anything to say. I've never played a Castlevania game.
Yeah, that's fair. But my thing. But you played Dead Cells, so I know that you have a general feel for how they make games and how their games feel. Even though it is important to say that Motion Twin started Dead Cells, and then Evil Empire took it over while Motion Twin went off and did something else. That is important to know. Well, now I'm curious because originally the game that they went off to do, I actually can't remember the name right now, but they showed it at one of the games. I think it was Summer Game Fest last year, and it looked good. But I just can't remember the name off the top of my head, unfortunately. So we'll see. But
this is weird, dude. It says, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It says Evil Empire Development Studio, Motion Twin Advisory Game Studio.
Oh, okay. Well, that's partially because that's what Motion Twin is. Motion Twin's a really hard company to even describe. For the most part, they've only ever had about 8 employees at any given time, and then those employees rotate in and out.
Dead Cells, or they didn't make Dead Cells?
They did make Dead Cells. They did, but the whole point of them making Dead Cells is that a lot of the people who were the creative heads over Dead Cells, much like previous games that they had been doing stuff with, moved on from the company and new people came in, because it's like even though they're a company, the goal is not for them to keep a consistent group of people. It's meant to be a name of co-op of artists that are just kind of rolling in and out and doing different games and then bouncing on. So whenever Dead Cells blew the fuck up, Motion Twin had interest in wanting to move on because the people who were behind Dead Cells went ahead and moved on. And so Evil Empire were brought in to kind of take over continuing Dead Cells, since people still clearly wanted it. But they still did advise to some degree on what that is, because Motion Twin also acts as a legit art advisory studio, but they also make games. If I'm wrong on any of this, anybody let me know. They're really odd. I don't know if they're actually developing this one or simply a lot of games are being co-developed these days, so it's harder to tell.
But this doesn't, I don't know. Like, Evil Empire is clearly good.
It's probably,
but I'm more excited for a Motion Twin Castlevania than an Evil Empire Twin Castlevania. Whether that's fair or not sucks to be you. But
I think that one depends. Sometimes some people are like, well, if you like Dead Cells, you really like Evil Empire more. No, I played all of my hours in Dead Cells were before Evil Empire ever was in the mix. Dead Cells was a fucking banger game day one. Is it better now? Maybe, but that's also because it was built on a banger skeleton. So I'm just throwing that out there. I'm with you. I'm a little more excited by the Motion Twin name being attached to it than I am the Evil Empire name being immediately attached to it. But that doesn't mean I think anything bad about Evil Empire. I just haven't played anything of theirs. But if I'm not mistaken, Evil Empire were the studio that just put out the Rogue Prince of Persia, correct?
Yeah.
I want to play that, so maybe I'll have a better feeling for how I feel about them. But Motion Twin being involved at all makes me at least kind of be like, this is cool.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Why? We go back to the Ship of Theseus thing. Why? The people that made Dead Cells for Motion Twin aren't even fucking there. So why does it matter?
True.
But here's an interesting thing. I think that this is cool. I don't want to say I'm sad. I think this game looks good, and I'm not upset with the art style at all. What I think would have been a slightly cooler art style and maybe a slightly more interesting game while still having a lot of the same things here, and I think we've seen this from one of their other games, I would have really liked to have seen Thunder Lotus make this game. And I think, here's my thing. I think Thunder Lotus's specific brand of hand-drawn art would have fucking rocked with Castlevania, because Castlevania has some of the coolest, like the late 90s and early 2000s, and even really going into even the games that people don't like much, like Lords of Shadow 2, the concept art and case art is fucking cool. It is so cool. And having a studio known for hand-drawn art that can kind of lean into that a little bit and give you that, almost hand-drawn, kind of what you imagine from the covers, but in gameplay would have been super cool. And I think that Thunder Lotus would have been a good studio for it. And more so, I think Thunder Lotus has shown that they know how to make a game like this, because if you go and look at, I mess up on the name of this game every time. So let me look it up real quick. Sundered from 2017 is in many ways a mix of a roguelite and a traditional Metroidvania together. You do reset, but you also do make real progress that matters and gives you new abilities that you keep, and you move through a story that actually goes somewhere. So my point is, I think that they've already proved with Sundered that if you let them, give them a reins with it, they could have done a killer one. But by no means am I upset about this, and this makes sense because the relationship was already there. I'm glad to see Castlevania just get a new game, because even though Konami's been coming back to games, I was really like, are they just going to come back to trying to make Metal Gear Solid remakes and new Silent Hill, and that's it? And then they had the other game that I thought looked really good last time they showed it, and they showed it again here. Darwin's Paradox looks fucking fun. It looks really good. And it's a kind of goofy, weird Dave the Diver almost-esque game, in the sense of like it's not trying to take itself too seriously. And I think it looks charming as hell. And I'm glad to see Konami making more and more games. Even if they're not necessarily being developed by them, they are funding them and putting their name out there on them. That's important.
That was the octopus. Yeah. It looks cool.
It looks so good. Before we talk about your final game, the only other game I do want to talk about, very importantly, because I'm curious to see where you land on this as well. The last game that my opinion got changed on, and again, I can't say with certainty, but I went from I had no real intentions of playing it to I probably will play it. The question is just, do I buy it day one or on sale? Every time they've shown 007 so far, I have been very passively like, meh. It doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look like my cup of tea, and I don't think it's going to be my type of game. I don't know what it was about this trailer, because I've watched all of them. I've watched each one that they put out. This one sold me on what I actually think the game's trying to do.
Do you want to know why? Because I think I'm wondering if you feel the same way. This is an Uncharted game.
Yes, with a little more freedom.
It's just an Uncharted game.
And I am all fucking for it. And that's exactly what it is. I started looking at the third person shooting and realizing what I was doing. And then some of the action set pieces, I was like, this is more Uncharted than Hitman. And I'm glad, because I always kind of hoped that would be the case. But they've been making Hitman for so long. Like literally, that's like the main thing that they've made for the biggest course of their career. I was trying to figure out how they pivot away from that and how they do this. And none of the trailers up until now felt like they even bothered to show that. All the trailers until now felt like they were focused on the story. And while I'm not a huge 007 fan, the story is not a bad or a good thing, but it's not an immediate singular selling point for me. The story being good and the gameplay being compelling, combining together, I'm all for that. This looks way better than I thought it did. I can't say it's day one buy for me or anything yet, but it has firmly moved into the, as long as the friction for me to be able to experience the game is pretty low, I'll probably get it. And considering that I haven't paid actual money for a game in years at this point, like part of the reason I bought Sons of Sparta is because I already had $75 in my PlayStation wallet from points that I spent on my credit card. It's because they were going to expire. And I was like, I guess I'll just load myself up on credit. So at that point, I'll probably get it.
Yeah, it looks fun. Like I said, it looks like a great Uncharted game.
And I think they did a better job making the story look interesting this time. I actually felt, for once, like, oh, that is an actual charming character who I can believe people would find charming. All of the other showcases they've done so far, I'm like, this doesn't even feel like it's trying to be Bond. And even though I'd say this feels a little bit more like Nathan Drake meets James Bond, I don't think that's a bad thing, and ultimately, I think that's kind of what a modern Bond is anyway, right?
Yeah,
a little less stoic than he used to be
for now. I mean, I guess
stoic.
actually
Maybe
probably
not,
not because the last Bond was Daniel Craig, so I don't know that I agree with that take. We haven't seen another Bond yet.
That's true. I am thinking of older. I'm thinking of older Bonds, but point being, yeah, you are right. I'm thinking like Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan and shit like that, where they're kind of more aloof.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. I mean, I've only really earnestly watched the Craig ones, but I've seen I
was like 15
or whatever.
So I'm not going to throw this out there as like a big thing for the Craig ones. I've seen some of the other ones because my brother loves these. So I've watched various ones growing up, but I've never paid too much attention to them. But the Craig one that the Casino Royale was the first one, correct? That sounds correct.
Mm-hmm.
It came with my PlayStation 3 alongside Ratchet and Clank. And so I had free ability to watch it, and I watched it, and I was like, Blu-ray fucking kills. This looks incredible. I didn't think the movie was that great. I was just kind of like, eh. And I never watched any of the other ones because I was just like, I don't really care about this, and I just never. And people are like, "You've never seen Skyfall?" No, I don't know what the fuck. No,
Skyfall is good. I like Skyfall. I even liked the one before, like Quantum of Solace, but I don't think the first one's very good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings against it. I just know I didn't care for it. But Chris, it's time for the fucking big guns, and I think it's time for us to round this conversation out with what we always knew was going to happen. But I'm not going to lie. I had led myself to believe this wouldn't happen until later, and technically that is true. But I didn't even think we'd get the announcement until later this year. It is finally time for me to be able to replay Metal Gear Solid 4 without having to jeopardize the life of my old PlayStation 3 or pull out my other PlayStation 3 to play it, which I was severely debating for a while. Though I'm still kind of severely debating it because I own Metal Gear Solid 4 digitally on PS3 and can play it for free. I have to buy this one.
I'm going to buy it. So
I'm kind of surprised. First of all, I am so glad this is here. And when Saul first saw it, he's like, wait, are they remaking this? And then they showed the Ocelot, and I was like, nah, bro, that is the PS3 Ocelot model. I was like, it's scaled up to a modern resolution, so it looks a little bit crisper. He's like, oh, that didn't look like that. Like, that is exactly what those character models look like in that game, no doubt.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, Chris. Are you going to restart 4 with this to play it instead of finishing on PS3?
Yeah. Well, I might honestly finish it on PS3 and play it on PS4, but I'm definitely going to play it on PS5. I said 3 different consoles there by accident, but
I'm so stoked for this, but also I think it's a little weird that Volume 2 is 2 games. And I don't know, these are the only important ones, so I guess I'll give them that. Like, Peace Walker is the only spin-off game that really matters. But what I was kind of hoping for, even though it's technically not Metal Gear Solid, so I want to throw that out there too, it wouldn't technically fit the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. I was kind of hoping it would be 2 of the PS3 era games. I was hoping it'd be Metal Gear Solid 4 and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and Peace Walker.
That would have been crazy.
And it's not. And I know that they didn't technically make Revengeance, but I fucking want to play Revengeance because I've never gotten to beat it. I rented it from GameStop because you could check out games when you work there, and I didn't get it beaten in time. I got like halfway through it, if I had to guess, and I had to take it back because you can only check it out for a certain number of days. And I've always just wanted to go back and play it because I think that game's fucking cool. Even though it's not it wasn't necessarily Kojima's wishes. Either that would have been cool. But it being only 2 games just feels odd. But it being arguably the most requested game because it's been so fucking hard to play because it's just been locked away on PS3 kind of makes, honestly, Volume 2 could have just been that game and I'd be like, let's fucking go.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they'll do a Volume 3 with like Revengeance and Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes. And I
don't know. And there's a lot. So part of me, and I don't think it was the right call, by the way, but part of me was like, well, if they really wanted to, they could have done like a Metal Gear Metal Gear Portable Ops 1 and 2 were PSP games that were still in the main theme of it. But then there's like Metal Gear Acid, which if I remember correctly is like a card game that Kojima made. He's like, I want to make a fucking Metal Gear card game on PSP early days. And then it eventually turned into him being like, oh, I can make an actual full-fledged Metal Gear Solid game with Peace Walker as like a swan song for the PSP. But it also, my wife was looking and I was like, yeah, it's like, I know that the second game they're showing here, Peace Walker, looks like dog shit compared to 4. I was like, I don't know how to say that in any kinder way, but I was like, remember this is a PSP game. So I was like, just know what you're getting into. This is a PSP game, and they did not do like Square Enix did with Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, where like they kind of went in and really made it look great for a PSP game. This looks like it's just straight up the PSP game uprest. That's it.
It does. Well, I think it's probably the PS3 version, but yeah.
It probably is the PS3 port that they did from back in the day. And honestly, they were talking about updating the Volume 1. I think all they did was go back and pull all the textures and everything, or they may have even just sneakily replaced the game files in Volume 1 with the remaster files, because originally they didn't. Originally, it was just the PS2 versions of the game. I think they went in and pulled the actual HD remasters and threw, even if it's just the textures from those, onto this.
I don't know, man. I'm fucking here for it. I'm gonna.
I still
play through
think
it
I'm going to
again.
play. Oh, dude, this year you inspired me already. At some point in this year, I'm playing through all of them again. But what I'm trying to land on is, do I play them on Vita or on PS5? And I don't know the answer yet.
PS5.
I don't know, man. I kind of like the Vita ones.
Yeah, but there's something to it. I don't know. The best version you could possibly play is on PS5. That's why I would play it there.
So 4 is finally fucking coming. You know what? I would play it on PS3. Actually, might be the best way to play it because PS3 still had pressure sensitive buttons. Let's go throw that out there. Vita does not, and that fucking kills me because those games, as dumb as that is to say, Metal Gear Solid is probably the only game across all the PlayStation consoles that had pressure sensitive buttons to have actually made use of them. But it's so well done, and it makes me wish they would have kept them and developers would have actually cared because pressure sensitive buttons are fucking cool.
They are.
It's just as cool as everybody being like, ooh, in Rift Apart, if you barely squeeze R2, it shoots the gun, and if you pull it all the way, it does the alt fire. Yeah, that is fucking cool because you're basically doing pressure sensitive analog, triggers, but there used to be buttons that could do that.
Yeah.
And that shit was cool
true.
too. Throwing that out there. This is awesome. And I was so hyped to see it because clearly they were working toward it. But until I saw it, I kind of still had this feeling of like, it's just going to sit on PS3 forever. And part of me, that's a complicated feeling because part of me kind of likes that. As weird as it is, like if you want to play Metal Gear Solid 4, you got to go dig the old shit out and figure out a way to do it. But it's ultimately better for everyone to get to experience the game if it's on modern hardware, including myself. It's easier for me to re-experience.
There's a part of like, I think going back, and this is going to sound shitty. I don't know if it sounds shitty, whatever. There's a certain like je ne sais quoi of like wanting to play an older game and having to go back to the console. Like every time I've tried to play through a Pokemon game I loved on like an emulator, I never finish it. You throw a fucking DS in my hand with Emerald in it, I'm probably going to finish it, You're
touching on something that I'm about to get into. I told you I bought the AYN Thor, right? That little dual screen thing. And the main reason I bought it is that 3DS prices are insane right now. And for basically like $50 more than you can find a decent shape used 3DS, I could just get a brand new AYN Thor, which is still dual screen, has a better analog stick, can do other things, but can also really well emulate DS and 3DS with an actual dual screen experience. I am curious to see. They're still going to be different because it's ultimately still emulators. It's going to be a little more complicated than just popping a game in and playing it. But I'm curious to see if I'll have the same feeling of playing on a 3DS, but just feeling better. Because in those states, on that, you can play 3DS games and DS games at like 4 times resolution, 8 times resolution. And that means you can make some of these games look incredible. For example, the 3DS version of Alpha Sapphire, there's the emulated version. There's also people that made an HD texture pack where they went through and made it to where even though it's scaling all the game up, they replaced it with textures that are actually the right resolution to be scaled up so they look cleaner, and all of the text looks cleaner being scaled up instead of just being stretched, pixelated text. And that sounds exciting, but I'm kind of in that thing of, is it actually going to work? Because my thought was, I'm buying this to essentially be a replacement 3DS that's just nicer and has better graphics and is more modern. And if something goes wrong with it, it's easier to work on. And I'm really worried if that's not true. Like if I start playing on it and I just have that feeling of like, it's just not actually the 3DS, but it's as close as you can fucking get. It's actually 2 screens. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a complicated place to be in, but it speaks on what you're talking about, where I am a little worried. Like, is the feeling I'm chasing after just actually playing on a DS or a 3DS? Or is the feeling that I'm after playing on something that feels a lot like the 3DS, but is better?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm looking for a DSi, brother. That's what I want.
There you go. Dude, I'm kind of like
DS console.
To the point where I'm looking at ways to set up the AYN Thor to make it feel the most like a DS or a 3DS, because I like the thing of both of those. And I found Wallpaper Engine is a thing that exists for computers, and you can make it work on like Android devices. It's there. And somebody made a DS clock. You remember the old DS clock thing with like the grid and the clock on top of it? There's a live wallpaper for that. And I kind of want to, I'm a little tempted. I'm debating on how exactly I want to do it. Part of me wants to throw that up on my top screen as a live wallpaper and then have all of my games and things in a app launcher on the bottom where you can see them all. And they look like the tiles from DS. That sounds like that would be fucking cool. Because it'll feel a lot like a DS, but it'll technically be OLED screens, better touch screen, better resolution on everything. So we're going to find out. It was a $350 gamble, but the thing looks pretty fucking cool. We'll see what happens.
Does seem pretty sick.
Also, you can emulate Switch on it, which is more than anything just interesting.
Yeah.
Like not every game, but like I've seen people playing like Bayonetta 2 at like solid frame rates and playing like Astral Chain at solid frame rates, and I'm like, let's fucking go. I'm down to try that out. It looks pretty good. So we're going to see what comes of it. All that to say, Chris, I don't have a whole lot more to say other than that. I just thought this was a really impressive state of play.
It was a great state of play. I will say I know that Control and Pragmata was there.
Oh, we didn't talk about Control.
I don't want to talk about Control. I watched.
Do you think it looks bad?
Gameplay. I went no. I watched a little bit of gameplay. I went, this looks sick, and I turned it off. So I don't have anything to say.
Okay. I won't even say what it is then, because I wanted to talk so much about how finally we're getting a game that is doing something that a game that came out 14 years ago, fucking 15 years ago did. But I don't want to ruin it for you, so I guess I'll.
It's fine. It was one of those where I was like, I know I'm going to play it.
I'll say this much without going into too much. Having a game finally do basically what Gravity Rush was pulling off. I saw that. It's Gravity Rush Light, but holy shit. Being able to like hop up onto a wall.
Yeah. That was basically when I stopped when I saw the city, like the street and then the street, I was like, oh, that's sick. And then I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to play this.
What I mainly want to say about it is I already felt this way from when they first showed it during the stuff at that was Game Awards, right?
Yeah.
And now, first of all, I was surprised that we're seeing so much so soon. That was cool. I was like, fuck yeah, I want to see more of it. Secondarily, I really want to commend Remedy. I think this is a ballsy ass sequel. And this is the second time they've done this in some ways, because Alan Wake 2 is kind of a ballsy sequel to Alan Wake. They are very different games, but they're ultimately more similar than Control sequel is going to be to Control. Yeah. And I'm curious as to why. I kind of think they must have been we're tired of making games where you shoot, because Alan Wake was that. And as much as I like Quantum Break or whatever the fuck that game was called.
That's exactly what it was called. Yeah.
That game's also awesome, by the way. But that game is mainly a third-person shooter. Control's a third-person shooter. Alan Wake is ultimately a third-person shooter, even if it's survival horror. I think that they were just kind of like, we're tired of making fucking third-person shooters. We're going to make a melee-heavy game, and I'm fucking here for it. It looks really cool, but I just love to see them taking that much of a risk with this sequel, because the safe thing to do, and you were talking earlier about how a lot of games look safe, right? A lot of modern games are safe. I think Control sequel is anything but safe. It's kind of a ballsy move that runs the risk of alienating people who wanted the sequel to be more third-person shooter.
I agree. I think it looked cool. I was surprised that they straight up stole the model from Hell Is Us for the main character, but other than that, what I saw looked great. Like I'm gonna play it. It made me want to replay Control or finish Control, so I'll do that. And then what I saw of Pragmata looked great. I got a kick out of the end of the trailer when I click back on. No, when he's like, the thing opens its mouth and he just goes, oh, and runs away. I was like, that was fucking funny.
I don't know how I feel about Pragmata. I'm glad it's coming, and I'm willing to try it and play it, but I'm having a very hard time actually landing on how I feel.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm into it. I don't want to see too much more of it. I don't even know when I'll get to it, but like the concept, fact that it's a Mega Man game, that's all really cool to me. So give it a shot.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what ends up coming of it. With that as a note, we're going to wrap the show up. I do want to mention that there was a number of questions that we had before this episode had shifted to being a State of Play focused episode that I still want to get to. But as I mentioned earlier in the Discord, for episode 400, we were kind of going to do things a little differently. I was talking with Saul, and he said he kind of regretted not being able to be on episode 300, and he felt like that wasn't that long ago. So when I was like, well, episode 400 is coming up, he's like, what? And so we started talking. He's like, well, I'd like to be on that. And so we're working on finding a way to schedule with him. And I posted in the Discord, so people seemed excited for that. So if you've been listening a long time, and you remember Saul and the time when Saul was here, he is going to be here for episode 400. So is Chris. We're going to have a very discussion-focused episode. We're going to be talking about what everybody's been up to, what we've been playing, give y'all an opportunity to get Saul's opinions on things that have happened since he's left the show that have come and gone that you may have wished you could have gotten his opinion on. And I think that some of these questions are a great thing to pull into him because they're pretty open-ended questions that are good for conversation. And I'm very excited to just kind of dive into that. And I think that'll make for a fun episode 400. We're not worried about news. We're not worried about what's happening. We're just hanging out and talking about games and getting to fuck around. And that'll be better anyway, because we're probably going to have to make sure everybody can be there. We're probably going to have to record on a different day than usual. We won't have to worry about the friction of making sure we have news. So if you normally don't interact with us on social media, but you do remember the Saul days, and you want me to have any kind of questions that you want to have ready for him, I've already asked it on Discord, wherever it is that makes sense for you, in the comment section on YouTube. If you watch on there, if you're listening on podcast services and you want to comment on the Spotify like some people do, that's great. If you want to join the Discord and pop in and throw a question down, that's great. If you want to email the show, that email's still up. You can email us a question any way that you see fit. Please feel free to do so. I'm excited to have Saul back on because, of course, I talk to him every week, multiple times a week. But I know a lot of you just kind of feel like, oh, Saul's gone and he's been gone for a long time. And that's just the reality of what things are. So it was cool to see him be excited about coming back around and doing an episode, which is good times. We've been doing this podcast as of this year, 9 years.
Long time.
We started in 2017. So yeah, I'm genuinely surprised we've got this far. And I continue to have a good time with it. You know, for the most part, it's usually more fun than it is a headache. And that's something to be said. So I
agree. We have a good time here.
Thanks, Chris, for joining me today. As always, we will get, like I said, all those questions next time. But one thing that we like to do is for all of our patrons who went over to patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month just to help keep the show going. As you'll notice, if you are a patron, we don't do like extra content. Very rarely do we do extra content. We have. This is really, and this is what I like. I do this a lot too. This is just for people who enjoy what we do and want to help support us in doing so that we can continue to do it easier and easier. And the less we have to dig into our own pockets to be able to fund things like hosting the podcast, or paying for what we use to record the podcast. Since Chris and I are not in the same area, there's a cost that comes with this Zencastr platform. Being able to know that all that's covered without us having to dig into our own pockets is fantastic, and it lets me take on the other things like the editing time and cost, the cost of time for editing and whatnot, and just generally not worry about it as much. So as a thank you for the people that do that, we always shout them out at the end of every single episode, just for what they allow us to do. Without further ado, we want to shout out our newest patron, the Boorish Boar, also GromKid1989, FR Damian Quigley, Ryan Goldner, Low Rate Nate, Spencer, Brandon Edwards, Alex, Barry Rogers, Stingray X, Matt Tubbs, Bailey Robertson, Mark Schutz, Rude Days 93, Kevin Bacon Bits, Danny Villalobos, Jehudi MD, No Fate, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, Sean Sanders. Thanks to each and every one of you. And we'll see you next week. Next time, rather. What am I talking about? Falling back into old habits.